Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and race fans alike, and welcome to the MotorMotion E-Series Trak Racer TCR Cup. And we are here at the beautiful Circuit de Spa, Francorchamps, in a very, very bit of wet conditions, which is going to make it a lot of fun here for our 90-minute endurance race for TCR Round 6. That's the penultimate round of the first season with the Audi TT 2016 cars, with Round 7 coming up in a couple of weeks, and we'll be live with that broadcast. But for now, you're live here with us in the commentary box, and it is myself, George Cooke, up here, staying nice and dry, alongside the legendary and very articulate Nick Pautasso. And welcome into the commentary box, Nick. How are you doing today for Round 6?
Good evening, George. It is that time of the month again where you and I get to jump in the comms box for some Trak Racer TCR Cup racing, the one-make Audi TT 2016 model. And I'll tell you what, George, I've always been excited for TCR Cup racing, and nonetheless also excited for for the Div2 that is being broadcasted to us live here on the MotorMotion E-Series YouTube channel, and we are very excited. This is our favorite division, George, and
it's the best division. we know. There's action, there's fire. It's just the best.
Absolutely, we love it. We love the racing here, and all the drivers that have been participating in the TCR Cup have been absolutely amazing. And without the guys, we wouldn't be able to bring you a live coverage here at MotorMotions. And we thank the admins, and we thank as well George Cooke, who is providing the stream for us tonight. So go follow him on his Twitch channel at Crazy Good Kung Fu, and watch all of his races, watch all of his broadcasts on his Twitch channel. But we are here excited for this fantastic layout here in the Ardennes Forest, which is also known to all the racing fans around the world as Spa, or Spa-Francorchamps, where it has some very notorious corners here. Add a bit of wet weather racing to the mix here, these corners become ice skating rinks, George, and it's all going to be about who can master these conditions.
That's right. You've got to be aware of what's going on. You're going to be needing to talk to your guys on the pit lane to get updates on what is going on with the weather, because in this valley here at Spa, anything can happen. The weather can change at the click of a finger without you even realizing it. And of course, they have to navigate a 7.004 kilometer track, and that is no joke. We're going to be looking at well over 2 minutes per lap, around 19 corners, and that includes all the famous ones you're aware of, down to La Source, up through Radillon and Eau Rouge, down the Kemmel Straight, through Le Combe and to Malmedy, through Rivage, down the hill towards Pouin, and then through the lovely S's that is Fagner, towards Stavelot, and down the back straight of Blanchemont to the bus stop chicane. Those 19 corners going to provide a serious challenge in these conditions today. As you said, turns into an ice skating rink. Look out for the curbs when the wet weather starts to come in. And a note on that wet weather, we do know that qualifying is going to be maybe slightly dry, and we know that the start of the race might be slightly dry as well. So we'll see if anyone dares to jump onto the intermediates or the wet tires early to try and gain an advantage when the rain does inevitably hit the circuit, which we know it absolutely will. So we will see today some wet weather driving in these amazing TT Audi Cup cars, and the front tires are going to be interesting on this one, Nick. There's a lot of corners that require that mechanical grip. We know that they don't have the aero, and with such a long circuit, managing the tires today is going to be a real challenge.
It's not just managing the tires, it's literally just being able to keep the car straight around this track. As we've seen plenty of times, we see a few drivers have been very impressive in losing the front end of the car and drifting around corners a few times. We saw in the practice session earlier, we saw a few drivers really trying to exploit the track limits and really just trying to avoid the white lines. And we saw a lot of cars in the early practice sessions really basically ice skating around this track. So the mechanical grip becomes very crucial. But also in the first phase of qualifying, and especially in the race, the drivers that do start on the dry tires, they need to get themselves in a very strong position. They basically got to put themselves up towards the pointy end of the grid, and as well, very important to get the cars off the line, get through the first few laps, and then once the rain hits, we don't know when, we're going to find out, as well as the drivers are going to find out, but deep conversation rather, is going to be held amongst team engineers, pit crews, and the drivers themselves. But I think that's going to be, I guess in a way, it is time to get ourselves familiar of what we have here at MotorMotion E-Series with the Trak Racer TCR Cup.
That's absolutely right. And so we will jump into the standings and get ourselves up to date with where things are at in the Season 1 so far. And this is after the last round, which was out at Atlanta. A fantastic race round there. It was absolutely brilliant to go and watch what was going on track. Some great strategy, some great driving, and some unfortunate mishaps on that track. It's very easy to make a mistake, but that means the standings and the team title right now, it is me, Cooke, Driver Development, with Andrew Scott and Mitch Hill. They are running away with things in first position, and another battle between second and third place between Trackstars Racing, that's Tyler Lancel and Ricky Rick, and CP Motorsports, that's Dean Van der Zandt and Shane Harrison, in a close battle for second position there. So, Nick, I think this is going to be a really great round here to prove, do me, Cooke Driver Development, have what it takes to take out the rest of the season? It's looking likely already, but there is going to be a big battle. I think we need to keep an eye on the Trackstars Racing cars and the CP Motorsports cars today, because that battle is heating up rapidly.
Yeah, just the battle for second place, and not only the battle for second place, you're going to look down the teams right behind that could be that are lurking in the background. Road Sick Racing with Peter McKenzie and Ben Churchill have been putting on some great performances as of late for the Road Sick Racing team, and also you got to keep an eye on Mad Turtle Racing as well as Bundaberg Red Racing, even Diffusion. So literally between second and seventh, you can literally throw a blanket over them. 50 points separate between second through to seventh place. But you also have to remember here as well, George, because it is an endurance round, we have double the points on offer for all of our drivers here tonight. So whatever you position at the end of this race could really impact your chances of putting yourself in a great position in both drivers and teams title. And especially for me, Cougar, if they get their drivers in a very strong position, we could definitely be seeing one hand on a title, or we could say 1 3/4 of a hand on the team's title, but the driver's title is still up for grabs.
Correct. Upwards of 90 points available here for the winning driver in each of the divisions. And speaking of divisions tonight, we are going to be focusing, because it is an endurance race, we're going to be focusing on our favorite division, Division 2. But we do have Division 1 results, which has just finished recently. That's why the Division 2 guys are out on the track currently practicing at the moment. And so we will run you through what's happened in the Division 1 standings as well. I think it's probably time for us to go and have a little look at that right now. So over to you, Nick, for the Division 1 standings as they are now.
So as they are now, before we are commencing our round here. As we are commencing our round here at Spa-Francorchamps, we still have got Andrew Scott from me, Cougar Driver Development, the brand new team coming into MotorMotion E-Series, led by the head honcho in Andrew Scott in first place. Dean Van der Zandt for CP Motorsports been putting on some absolute masterful drives. Unfortunately, he's yet to crack the win here. So can he crack the win at the end of this 90-minute session here at Spa-Francorchamps? We'll find out in due time. Tyler Lansdell in third place, not too far behind him. And then just ahead of him, or right behind him rather, is Robert Foster for Mad Turtle Racing. And then the privateer, the standout for the Division 1, Scott Taylor in fifth place. Shane Addard, Johnson and McKenzie, all very in close proximities, only separated by 3 points. And throw Kevin Cooper in the mix, it's about 7 points between those drivers. So the battle for sixth place heats on, but you can see there's some great drivers amongst the field in Division 1. But so far, it's all about, can anyone catch Andrew Scott, and can Dean Van der Zandt finally break through for a victory?
That's right, and we do have the results screen up now, and we have to apologize for a small mistake that's on screen now. So don't worry about Glenn Mee, he's not actually involved in this race today, as far as my commentary sheet makes me aware of. But the race winner was indeed Andrew Scott, who ran away with it on tracks with some excellent strategic moves to navigate the wet weather that was happening earlier in the day. And second place goes to Tyler Lansell, so a standout there for Trackstars Racing. That is going to matter when it comes to the overall team's title.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching on his broadcast on his YouTube channel, Lansdale actually was in a very prime position to actually take the victory for the first time here at MotorMotion E-Series. But Andrew Scott came away with a very good strategy, as he always does, and a very good solid race. And Scott managed to come through, take the victory. But that's very healthy points for Lansdale, because look at where his rival is, Dean Vandersan, 8th place, so 32 points versus Tyler Lansdale's 82. So that's a 50-point swing in this championship. So that'll definitely promote Lansdale up into P2. And as well, they've even got themselves even Robert Foster. He's only on 70 points, and those two, Lansdale and Foster, were still battling it out for the battle of the last place of the podium in the championship standings. But now Foster finishes in 3rd. You know, anything can heat up in the last round coming into the final week of TCR Cup racing. Naki Nax did a very fantastic job there for Ned Racing. That's his best result so far this season, finishing up in 4th place. And Shane Addard for Strike Race Tech. So a little redemption for Strike Race Tech coming up through the pecking order inside the top 5. And then we have the surprise package. If it's not Shane or Nax, it's actually Patton who's actually come through. Top 6 for Kane Patton. So that's a huge result for the Kiwi team in Extreme Motorsport.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Maybe the Shane Attard had a good result because he was finally using the right livery and the right car number. So maybe the luck swung his way. But nonetheless, a great drive from the top 5, top 6. In fact, the whole top 10 having a great time there. A few honourable mentions, of course, to those in the bottom half of the grid as well. But this means that the overall Drivers' Championship standings after Spa look thusly. Andrew Scott is running away with it now with a 110-point lead over Tyler Lansdale. But Tyler, I think he's jumped. Correct me if I'm wrong. We had Dean van der Zandt was closer to the top there, but Tyler, with that fantastic result, bagging himself 80 points overall, has jumped right up to 2nd position. And then we've got Robert Foster and Dean van der Zandt to close out the top 4 of the Drivers' Championship as it is now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, Dean lost 2 positions in all of that. So both Tyler and Robert jumped up a position, and the battle for 2nd place is on. And then you've got Andrew Scott, who's 90 points clear of Lansdale. If there is no further implications on Stuart's reports or anything that happens, I have a feeling that the title could be definitely going towards Andrew Scott for the main Cooke Drive development team. And, you know, I think it's well deserved. We've done how many rounds? We've done 7 rounds in this series.
6 rounds so far, yeah.
6 rounds, and he's won all 6. I mean, he's gonna go full Max Verstappen and go for a full successive victories. And, you know, if he could do 7 for 7, I mean, that'll be the most impressive stat here at MotorMotion E-Series.
Yeah, we'll have to give him a 2nd trophy, I think. But nonetheless, he has done incredibly well throughout the season, and that is reflected in the results. In the team title as well, his team, Me Cooke Drive Development, have been showing up the rest of the field saying, hey, we are here, and we are going to be winning everything we possibly can. It's a little bit of a different story with regards to the Me Cooke Drive driver in Division 2, but we will get over to that right now. So the focus today obviously is on the Division 2, so we haven't had the race yet, so we don't know how things are going to pan out today at Spa in the wet. But at the moment, it is Colin on 227 points for Bundaberg Red Racing. He's been out to a solid lead most of this season. A bit of switcheroo with Hill and Kutcher, all the M first named folks taking the podium spots at the moment. But today, it'll be interesting to see, can Hill, who's been on a run of victories in the last few races for Me Cooke Drive Development, can he pull out a win here today and bag a huge amount of points that'll almost certainly put him up into 1st place if Colin has even the slightest of a bad day today?
Well, it's not just a run of victories. He's just been having so much confidence in that car. It's come back it's backtracked all the way through Brands Hatch, even from round 2. So he put on 2 victories so far this season. Mitch Colin has put on some great performances as well, but he's been keeping it very consistent, running inside the top 5, the top 3 even. He had a couple of bad races. I think the last round at Road Atlanta, from memory, I didn't have a really good race on his end, hence why he lost a lot of points, even with Matt Kutcher having a little bit of a downwards turmoil, unfortunately. But between Colin and Kutcher, from round 1 to round 6, have been basically neck and neck with each other. Unfortunately, Kutcher not being able to get ahead of Mitch Cullen in the final standings of each race. But you've got to look behind here because you've got Ben Churchill for Road Stick Racing. Like I said, you've got to keep your eye on Road Stick Racing. We did see in the Division 1, Peter McKenzie did finish inside the top 10, only just in 9th place. So we've got Churchill, if he wants to get Road Stick up towards the pecking order and really challenge for a top 3 in that team's championship and put themselves ahead and challenge CP Motorsports, Trackstars Racing, Diffusion, Mad Turtle, all those big teams that have joined MotorMotion. He needs to get himself a move on, and he's only 4 points behind Kutcher in 4th place. And then we have Ricky Rick, Sean Parker, Graham Hamilton, who is unfortunately missing this time out in Division 2, and then Tony Griffin, 8th place, Hasseldine and Harrison inside the top 10. And as well down the order in Mark Karras in 15th place. He's actually missing as well. So we have 2 drivers absent tonight for what is going to be a 90-minute endurance race around Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, the world-famous Spa-Francorchamps, as we are going to get ourselves ready very soon for the first qualifying session in Division 2.
That's right, and today we do have a bit of a special offering, I suppose you can call it that. We don't have our usual grid walks, so we have actually been able to get the cameras in place in time for qualifying today. I know, it's amazing. You can thank us later. But nonetheless, we are going to be watching qualifying happening live in front of your eyes today, and then we'll be moving into the 90-minute 34-lap race here at Spa. So, Nick, I think it's time to hit the green button because I can see the cars starting to get their engines started in the pit lane. Let's head down to qualifying right now. And here we are for Spa. We've got 10 minutes of qualifying for these drivers. It's going to be very difficult because even though the track is a little bit damp out there, they will be on the soft compound on tires. They don't want to be running any kind of intermediate or wets, and they're going to get, with the outlap, probably 4 laps of push laps out there with 1 out lap, so maybe 5 laps at the absolute most if you can get out early. And speaking of getting out early, and we've got the Cooke driver development car, the number 3, out immediately, followed by Charles Nathaniel there, and then Ricky Rick. So they're out nice and early. They know that they could potentially get a 5th fast lap in if they get out nice and early and get round. Of course, the lap times here well over the 2-minute marker, especially when it's in slightly damp conditions like this. And here we see Karma Foster, and then we've got Matt Kutcher. So lots of people getting out nice and early. We do see a few lagging a little bit further behind, but we'll see what they do. We've got another 2-ish minutes until they get onto their first flying laps. And oh, that was an interesting line there, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The bollards always provide a bit of an obstacle around this track. You want to really just try and clip the apex, but then again, once you hit a bollard, you actually lose a couple. You lose a 10th and a half, couple of tenths actually trying to take that corner. So it acts like a bit of a penalty. Even though if there were track bollards at the Red Bull Ring for the Formula 1 Grand Prix, that'd be absolutely fantastic. So that way you'd see no drivers going off the white lines and exceeding track limits, because my goodness, that was a very, very interesting race that happened on the last weekend. But hey ho, all the drivers are trying their best to avoid the bollards and trying to get the fastest way around this 7.004 kilometer circuit at Spa-Francorchamps. Very muggy, very, very overcast here. So the tires are going to take a little while to get warmed up around this circuit. You're going to need to run at least a good couple of laps, running a bit of an outlap, banker lap, and then really go for it on that last one, because for a car like this that is very underpowered, and obviously in Group 4 specifications, GT4 specifications, the lap times are going to be very slow. But the drivers such as Mick Hill, who is the first of the runners, he's actually got himself out of the pit lane first, and it's all about him just trying to get as much time in as he can on these soft tires and really get himself to a good, really good viewpoint of essentially.
Yeah, and we're a little bit lucky here as well. We've been given the permission, well, the broadcast people have been given the permission to actually go and do some onboard laps here. So we will be seeing what it's like from the driver's eye perspective with the driver's eye onboard cameras here, provided by Trak Racer and the MotorMotion E-Series. And we will be going on board and down the Kemmel Straight we go with Mick Hill. This is going to be quite interesting to see how they end up handling the first series of corners here at Lacombe into Malmedy. Very tricky, and as he said before, very cloudy, sort of overcast conditions here today. Looking very gloomy out there, to be completely honest. and the track is definitely a little bit damp. We had some earlier showers. That was happening when the Division 1 race was going on, and so the track hasn't 100% dried up. It looks okay out there, especially given the lines that we've got here taken by Mick Hill. But everyone now on their first flying lap. They'll be coming round La Source momentarily, the bottom runners at the moment, and I'm actually fascinated to see who's going to get this right, because Spa is a tricky track. It's tricky in the best of conditions. It's tricky when it's damp like this. It's one of those tracks that requires absolute precision, and over 7 kilometers, that's very, very hard to achieve. So we should see a lot of either very small improvements over the laps, or maybe initially 1 or 2 drivers might show that they've absolutely put together a lap around here. And I can tell you, Nick, and I'm sure you've experienced this before as well, when you put a lap around here and you know you've got it all together, you know it, because that time can come down by a couple of seconds if you get it all right.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a lap around this circuit is, you know, it's always a joy to drive around this track, whether it's for drivers in the real world, racing, whether it's Formula 1, GT3, or the Spa 24-hour, you know, driving around this track in real life would be an absolute privilege to do in the real world. But even for the drivers here tonight in the virtual world, they are always having so much fun. And any lap you do around here is always a great lap. It's always a special lap, but you can find so much more. That's why it's really important for drivers like Mick Hill to set a good benchmark time for himself as it goes a little bit deep going through to the bus stop there. So that'll compromise his run onto the final corner, onto the pit straight. And as he goes in for his first lap time, it's going to be into the 1 minute 28, 1 minute 28.202. So that definitely costs him going towards the back end of the track, as we have the Charles Nathaniel's actually called provisional pole position, but only just there. So a good lap by Hill would have put him up really high up towards the order. And then Karma Foster for Ned Racing putting on a nice lap there with a 2 minute 30.5. And then we have Ben Churchill in Neon in third place for Road Sig Racing, and then Tony Griffin in 4th place. And as the orders start changing, chopping and changing, we have Mitch Collin up into the top 4. It's all about it. This is the moment of the track when it comes to qualifying. You can't tell what everyone's pace is as they cross that start finish line, because you see a lot of names jumping up, jumping down. You see drivers making mistakes on their first lap, so you see them right down the bottom of the pecking order. But then again, you get a surprise, and so far the surprise so far, you know, touch wood if he does well tonight, is Charles Nathaniel on provisional pole.
Fantastic lap. I mean, it's only just faster, only 51 hundredths of a second faster than Mick Hill at the moment. But Sean Parker as well, up into 3rd place, and then Ben Churchill. So, you know, yes, these are amazing laps here, but some folks can bring out their best first lap out, and some have to take a couple of laps just to get up to speed to find the edge, or they've made a mistake, as you said, Nick, into the first flying lap that they've done, and they'll have about 3 more flying laps here. If they might be able to get round for a 4th, we'll keep an eye out for who might be able to do that, but it's going to be very tricky when the lap times are sitting around 2.5 minutes. But yes, Charles Nathaniel, great lap from him. He's up in the provisional pole position right now, followed by Mick Hill, followed by Sean Parker, then Ben Churchill, and then we've got Mitch Collins. So great little start there, but Mitch Collins will need to be up at the pointy end of the grid by the end of this if he's going to have a good start here for the 90-minute race ahead. And conditions, and you know, it's very tricky here with the conditions. It's not raining at the moment at all. I don't think we see anything coming in through the weather radar, but this valley that Spa sits in, it really holds the moisture for a long period of time, so the track can remain slightly damp for a little bit. So if you see any cars sliding sideways, it's going to be most likely because of that.
Yeah, and not only this, because it is a very huge layout, the Spa-Francorchamps. You could get one end of the racetrack like really bone dry, and then the other end down towards the forest is really damp. So there's a lot of chopping and changing with the conditions that we have here at Spa-Francorchamps. As we see Charles Nathaniel improve his lap time by an extra couple of tenths. And as well, we see Ricky Rick actually move himself up into P4. So we have a few. So it is very tricky. So far, the weather's holding off very nicely. So that's very good by all the drivers here tonight to actually keep those cars in a straight line and not being whatsoever affected by any wet weather. So for the drivers that have just come across the start finish line, they're going to only have one more lap here. So this is the crucial lap here. And so far, a lap that has become very crucial for Mitch Collin is put himself on provisional pole position. A very stalking lap there by the man for the leader of Bundaberg Red Racing. He's done himself a really good job, and he's actually got himself a really good starting position so far ahead of Mick Hill for Cooke Drive Development. So really good lap there by Mitch Cole, but he's only got one more lap, and he needs to make this lap count.
Yeah, exactly right. And this is where things start to get tricky, because if you do have that one more lap, and you don't have a couple of good laps before, then you know you suddenly the pressure is starting to get on you. And I think I just saw Mitch Collin there, sorry, go purple in the first sector, so he's already going faster, which is a very, very good sign for him on this potentially the last lap that he will be doing out there. And the onboard so far looking great. It's absolutely brilliant to watch these cars go around here. Not obviously the fastest cars that we've seen at Spa over the years. Formula One obviously comes here, and the GT3 cars being probably quite a bit faster than these TCR cars. So in some ways, their job's a little bit easier here because they don't have to worry about the implicit speed of the vehicle, but it's made up for in the lack of grip and the trickiness of these front-wheeled cars. So yeah, so far all looking good. I think a little bit unfortunate so far for the Cooke Drive developer driver of Mick Hill. He's still down in 4th position there, and I haven't seen him improve on the last couple of laps. So both him and Charles Nathaniel not able to find any time in their last lap. So we'll try and catch some onboards with them and see if their deltas will show that they are making up time. But another standout here, the 83 car, Sean Parker up into P2 provisionally at the moment, but the gap is really small between the top 3 so far, literally less than 0.1 of a second separating the top 3 at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we have the final driver coming into the who's actually come around to do one more lap, and so has Charles Nathaniel. So these boys are so lucky that they're going to get one more lap in. I'm not so sure who the driver behind Charles Nathaniel is, but I don't know whether he's actually got it through another lap. I think he has. So the front 3 up in the picking order are able to do one more lap here. And this will become very crucial for Mick Hill, because Mick Hill hasn't actually gone through. So that was actually Ricky Rick that came through. So who do we have? We have Mick Hill, Charles Nathaniel, and Ricky Rick, who's actually gone for one more lap. Everyone that's coming across the start-finish line are on their final lap here. So will we see any improvements on some drivers? Stephen Harrison, unfortunately, not able to improve. Troy Britnell has improved his lap time slightly, but Hasseldine is down in 12th place. We see Cooke actually improve his positioning inside the top 8. As we can see, Hoey coming through to start finish straight doesn't improve. He will be starting the race 13th and last place. And so far, Mitch Collins starting on provisional pole position. Can Sean Parker do anything? He just loses out to a 10th of a second behind Mick Hill, behind Mitch Collins in provision on pole position so far. But the 3 drivers we need to keep our eyes on: disposable hero in Mick Hill, the number 3, Cooke Drive Development. Then we have Charles Nathaniel for ISA Esports right behind in car 589, and also a Ricky Rick, who's sitting in 7th place. So these 3 drivers have one more lap to get this lap right, George. It's all about here. You're on your own. You've got clean track. You know everyone else has come across the start-finish line. You've got Stavolo for the last time through Blanchimont and through the bus stop. You are really just trying to plan how to execute these last couple of corners here. He was actually down on his lap time there. I saw disposable here, unfortunately. We can see Charles Nathaniel, he's down as well, 1.3. So the drivers behind are not improving their laps, and we see Rick, unfortunately, gets himself a 2nd penalty. So I don't think we're going to see anything else unless Mick Hill really sends it, essentially just licks the stamps and send it through the chicane, cut the corner, go straight liner, get yourself provisional pole position. But if he doesn't improve on this last little bit here, he's going to be starting 4th place. But between the top 4 is absolutely so close there. 0.043 of a second between the top, covering the top 4. Wow. That's absolutely incredible.
That's astonishing. I definitely showed you the value of getting out there nice and early in this race. And yeah, what a qualifying that was. With those 3 cars right at the end, gave us a little bit to think about, getting an extra lap in there. I think they got 5 flying laps, was it? The rest of the field got only 4, and that was only coming out of the pits. Probably a few seconds between them coming out of the pits. And I think Charles Nathaniel and Ricky Rick got across the line with about 0.1 of a second remaining in the session. So very lucky, but unfortunately they all pushed a little bit too hard and were not able to improve their laps, including Ricky Rick, who picking up up, unfortunately, that penalty right at the end of the lap there towards the Blanchimont straight, where he will have had to serve it, so he would not have improved as well. So at this stage, the grid, I'm going to quickly run down because we're going straight to the grid. All the drivers have been instructed to return to the pits quickly and go straight out on their lap. So we will get things started. But quickly running through the grid, in the top spot on P1 on the first row of the grid will be Mitch Collin and Sean Parker. On the second row of the grid, it will be Charles Nathaniel and Mitch Hill. Then we've got Neon here, and that is Ben Churchill, 5th position for him. And then Griffo Tony taking out the 6th position there, final spot of the 3rd row of the grid. Then Ricky Rick in 7th position. Alongside him will be Matt Kutcher. And then we've got Karma Foster, who'll be sitting next to Stephen Harrison. Then Troy Britnell. And we've got Mark Hasseldine in 12th position. And rounding out will be Kingsley Hoey. Yeah, 13 drivers on the grid today. So far, the rain is not looking like it's coming in at the moment. So once these guys have gone round for their formation lap and they've lined up on the grid, we will get things going.
It's been an absolutely awesome qualifying session there between all the drivers, and the top 4 only covered by 0.043 of a second, and that is absolutely close. I think that's the closest I've actually seen the TCR drivers in Division 2 actually come to splitting themselves between pole position and 4th place. And you know, credit to where all credit's due. Mitch Collin, believe the other one was Sean Parker, Disposable Hero, Charles Nathaniel, and then Mick Hill. Those top 4 drivers, absolutely incredible. I mean, you know, incredible pace that they're all showing. But we have been given the green light, ladies and gentlemen, and we are ready to go for round 6 here of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. As those lights are about to go off, we're on 3, 4, 5 lights. It is Colin versus Sean Parker. It is lights out, green flag racing. A bit of a poor start in the background there, unfortunately, so someone caught napping on the lights there. But so far, Mitch Collin is going to lead the way into turn 1. Charles Nathaniel tries to go for an ambitious move on the Bundaberg Red Racing driver. He drops it down to a couple of positions, down to P4. But then we have Mick Hill, who's gained a position, 2 positions up into 2nd place. Sean Parker loses 1, and then we have Charles Nathaniel, Tony Griffin, Matt Kutcher inside the top 6. We have Churchill as well. So he's also dropped a couple positions off the starting grid as well as Ricky Rick. But so far it looks all even Stevens there. So far we can see Tony Griffin making the early move. So far is up into P4, and this is the crucial part of the race here, ladies and gentlemen, because we don't know when the rain is coming. All the drivers have all the telemetry. The teams have the telemetry and the weather and the map radar of when the rain is coming. So all these drivers here are going for sheep stations here.
That's absolutely right. What a great start there, and a lot of positions changed up. We've got Mitch Hill. He's already gotten up into the lead, 1st position to him. Mitch Collin has been taken out of the 1st position there, drops to 2nd place. Chops somehow, after seemingly getting caught up in the chaos, has managed to stay up in 3rd position, but yeah, unfortunately for Charles Nathaniel, he's dropped back to 5th position, being overtaken by Griffo. So great move by Griffo in the Camel Straight through Puon. They go now, and it looks like Disposable Hero is on a bit of a charge already at the beginning of this race. Now, we haven't mentioned so far that the racing soft tyres are actually mandatory here today. We did confirm that there was going to be a dry period on the track, so the soft tyres have to be used. They'll all be on soft tyres right now, but we guarantee the rain will not be far away. So, you're running through the grid right now. We've got Mick Hill. Then we've got Mitch Collin in 2nd place. They're very close right now. The entire grid looking very close. No major incidents throughout that 1st lap, which we're coming down the Blanchimont straight right now. Then Sean Parker in 3rd place, followed by Griffo Tony in 4th position. Charles Nathaniel not having a great start there, dropping 2 positions at the start. Then Mad Rick, he has actually gained 1 position already this lap. Then Matt Kutcher, he's done very well. Troy Britnell had a bit of an issue getting off the line, sliding in front of Kingsley Hoey. And oh, we've got a bit of an accident there. Who's that? That is Mad Rick. He has gone for a bit of an accident there at the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, I just saw him. He was trying to go for a move on Charles Nathaniel there, just into the bus stop, but unfortunately he went a little bit too deep there. He missed his braking marker and just dropped it well down onto the onto the white line, and really just couldn't pull the brakes up, unfortunately. And that drops him well down to last place as he was battling it out for 5th place. So that's a huge consequence there for Ricky Rick in the Track Stars Racing Audi TT. But as we saw there, we saw Disposable Hero in Mick Hill it's actually pulling away from Mitch Collins. We have Sean Parker really coming in for a bit of a tow, a bit of a slipstream. So he's got the outside line, but Mitch Collins going very hard on the defensive there. Will Sean Parker outbrake him? Will these guys go side by side through the corners here? No, we can see Mitch Collins actually pull through now nicely through Lake Coombe. And then through to Malmedy they come. They're still line astern with Mitch Collins in second, Sean Parker third, and Tony Griffin, the standout so far for Tony Griffin, up 3 positions from the start. And he's doing a fantastic job, and he's not letting go of these guys. He's on the soft tyres. Everyone's on the soft tyres here, ladies and gentlemen. But it's all about him. It's all about using these soft tyres to the maximum because, as I said, that weather is coming, and we are hearing from our camera crew and from the choppers above that the rain is on the way. We just don't know. They don't know how much, but they know it's on the way.
Yeah, Griffo must have done a great job getting his tyres warmed up, so hats off to his pit lane crew and himself on that first lap of the race and getting off the line very, very well. He is still falling off a little bit into the clutches now of Charles Nathaniel, who we overtook earlier in the race, and a good little battle pack is opening up behind them. So we've got about 6 cars in a row from 2nd place all the way to 7th place, and then another battle pack happening behind, led by Stephen Harrison. He's got Ben Churchill behind him. And this is going to get quite exciting. So 2 battle packs emerging in the race so far, split mainly at the point of 6th and 7th position. But it looks like, yeah, we've got Mick Hill is starting to run away with it a little bit, which is going to be great for his team. I'm sure Andrew Scott is watching from the pit lane, cheering and going, yes, this is exactly what we wanted, despite not the best qualifying in 4th position, of course. And yeah, as you said, it's all about when the rain comes down, because that's going to determine where you pit. That's going to determine how brave you are. Do you stay out for another lap? It's nearly.
It's a massive cluster up ahead for the battle for P2. As we saw, as you were mentioning, all the battle packs there. The battle pack for position 2 is on here. Sean Parker goes for the inside move up into turn 1. That is an actual great move there by Sean Parker in 2nd place, and he demotes Mitch Collins to 3rd place, who's now going to come under pressure from Tony Griffin right in the clutches there. But look at this pack here. They are mean. They are angry. They are wanting to get these tyres to their paces and go through the maximum as they go through the Camel Straight for the 3rd time in succession here. They're all lining up against each other. They're all trying to find some sort of space here, trying to get a tow. Unfortunately for Tony Griffin, he's lost out massively. He's going to be dropping himself down. So that's 2 positions lost potentially for Tony Griffin. No, he only loses 1 there. But that could have been worse for Tony Griffin if he lost 2 positions there. And that's what it really counts around this track here, especially around this through the Camel Straight. You really need to get that slipstream and get the tow going, because once you lose out on that tow, it's kind of like with NASCAR. You lose out on the battle pack and you lose out on, bump drafting. You get demoted towards the rear there. And thankfully for Griffin, he only stays through, coming through Jackie Ick's corner for the 3rd time through to Pouon. The corner that was known for the corner with no name is actually now being renamed to Jackie Ick's corner after the famous Belgium Formula 1 driver, the late great Jackie Ick's, who ran his career back at Ferrari, but now gets his name etched onto this beautiful circuit here at Spa-Francorchamps. Charles Nathaniel holding on to P4 as the battle pack behind is raging between Griffin and Matt Kuchar. Kuchar needs to get himself up those positions, because you can see his rival in Mitch Collin in 3rd place. He's in 6th, but also a potential the potential rival in Mick Hill is in 1st place, and so far is running away with it here, George, and he's got a huge gap over the likes of Sean Parker and Mitch Collin.
Too right, and we do have a little bit of a camera error there. Someone decided to stop looking at the actual race cars, but yes, as you said, Hill running away with things. I think it's a couple of seconds of gap he's got there to Sean Parker. Sean Parker's been looking very, very quick, though, and consistent around this track so far. Obviously, he's been able to hold on to that P3 position initially and then get P2 away from Colin. And Colin is not too far behind him, but he's not exactly on his bumper and is in a bit of risk there from getting swallowed by this pack, as we do go for some onboard shots here. And some of these camera angles are fantastic. But Charles Nathaniel, he's back into 4th position now. He's got Griffo Tony behind him, and then we've got got Matt Kuchar. So great little battle happening here. Further down the field, we do have Stephen Harrison. He's leading the other battle pack with Ben Churchill right behind him, and then Troy Britnell. So great little stuff happening right here. And as you said before, one of the important things to mention, just like in NASCAR, you do end up with a situation where you need to stay in that slipstream. This is going to be a great little shot. Down the Kemmel Straight we go, and Charles Nathaniel, you can see he's gaining and gaining and gaining. The tricky thing is that you get that dirty air. Not that that really matters with these cars. He does go and have a little look into Lacombe. No, decides better of it. You do get the dirty air throughout the rest of the track, other than the Blanchimont straight, the back straight down towards bus stop. So it can be very tricky to hold onto the back of another car, and that's what starts to create the gaps that we're seeing. But as soon as you get onto the Kemmel Straight through Eau Rouge and wide into Rivage is Colin, that's going to open up some more space for Charles Nathaniel. Behind them, Matt Kuchar and Griffo starting to fight as well, but Griffo started to falling off the pace a little bit. I wonder if he's overheated his tires in the first couple of laps.
Yeah, absolutely. He got the right tyre pressures. Did the Juiced Motorsports Pit Lane Esports entry in car 62. They got the tyre pressures right for the start, but unfortunately, they were really starting to see the worst of it, unfortunately. So he's really dropped down. Kuchar's actually gone up into 5th place as we were watching that battle for 3rd place between Mitch Collin and Charles Nathaniel. So Kuchar's now got some clear air. He's got some time to catch up to Charles Nathaniel in 4th place. Mitch Collin is losing time to Sean Parker and also losing time to Disposable Hero in 1st place in Mick Hill for the Mead Cougar Drive Development in car number 3. As we look down the order, as you said there, Stephen Harrison and Ben Churchill in 7th and 8th place, they are battling themselves. So there's got themselves a good battle pack as we see Griffin pick up a half-second penalty there. So you got the battle pack between Stephen Harrison, Ben Churchill, and Troy Britnell. Like you called it, they pulled away from the likes of Karma Foster and Hoey down inside the 10th and 11th place there. As we can see ahead, so the battle packs is going on here. So many drivers going for inside moves, left, right, front, and center. As we see a couple of camera issues there, and that's Sean Parker. So Sean Parker's made a huge mistake going into the bus stop, and he's demoted himself down to 3rd place, and this brings Mitch Collin up into P2. So Sean Parker's got a lot of work to do to get back into P2, but again, these drivers here in position 2 downwards, they're making mistakes here, George, and guess who's running away with it? Guess who's got the advantage? Mick Hill.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, the Mead Cougar Driver Development team, you can see them in the pit lane. In fact, I can see them down there just beneath us. They are looking very happy right now with a lot of stressed faces around the rest of the field. Everyone's worried about getting a bit of contact here. As we do see Sean Parker, he's gaining a lot. He's going for the inside move. Can he make it happen? On Mitch Collin again, he's going to try and retake that place in Lacombe. He's got a car ahead. Yeah, he goes through cleanly. Good move there, but will there be a switcheroo? No, Collin can't make it back round. That'll put him back into the clutches of Charles Nathaniel, who's now fighting with Matt Kuchar. Unfortunately, Griffo has fallen off this pack after that 0.5 second penalty. I think he has served it on that previous lap, but yeah, Hill is doing a fantastic job right now for Mead Cougar Drive Development in the 3 car.
Yeah, he's got himself a huge gap here, so all he's needed to do is just really conserve the tyres, run his own race there. He's got no threat from behind, obviously no threat in front of him because he's got clear air around here, unless he sees some lap traffic, which we don't see any lap traffic at all on lap 5 and 34. So everyone's running around pretty much in the same orders around here, so everyone's really keeping themselves at a close proximities there. So as you can see, some drivers, or the driver in Mick Hill coming through Stavolo for the 5th time. We can see Hasseltine exiting Puon, so quite close proximity there. I would say anywhere between about probably 15 to 18 seconds is covering the top 13, so still relatively close towards each other here, George. And that just shows that the one make series that we have here with the ADTTs for the Trak Racer TCR Cup, these guys are doing an absolutely stunning job to keep these cars at the maximum effort that they can put around this circuit, and they're really getting the true potential out of these cars and running pretty close to each other.
In other formats of driving, when you get a longer track like this, you often see the gap start to emerge. It usually accentuates the different advantages and disadvantages between the different cars. So you're right. seeing a one-make series here is just absolutely fantastic, and battles happening all the way up and down the grid. We will go back up the grid as we do see Kingsley Hoey now under a lot of pressure from Mad Rick. Mad Rick was looking on for a really good finish here for Trackstars Racing. Really unfortunate to see him have that incident at the bus stop chicane a few laps ago and drop himself all the way down the order. We know he's got speed here. So we've got the battle here now between Karma Foster and Troy Britnell. This is for the top 10 positions, and 9th place is Troy Britnell as they go through down the hill and up through Eau Rouge. Fantastic corner. This has actually got to be one of my most favorite corners of the entire racing calendar here in TCR Cup. And then, of course, we've got the little battle pack that was evolving a bit, led by Stephen Harrison. I think he might have been overtaken by Ben Churchill and Griffo. This is interesting. Griffo has really fallen off the top battle pack. He's now leading the second battle pack in the field, and Ben Churchill doing a fantastic job to bring himself back into contention here for Road Sick Racing.
Yeah, and you could just see like he's really struggling on the tyres here, Tony Griffin. He really used it to his advantage. Obviously, he was predicting, the team was actually hoping that the rain was going to come sooner than what it is coming up to right now. We're only about to come 14 minutes into the session of this 90-minute enduro, so we're nowhere near a quarter of the way here, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, unfortunately, I believe for Tony, he was essentially just praying for the rain to come right about now or within the next... within 2 laps to go. You know, if he was hoping for 2 laps to go, he would have looked like an absolute master charging through the field and gaining all those positions. But unfortunately, the rain is still not coming down yet, and I can still hear from my guys in the chopper. They are saying it's coming. They just don't know how intense it's going to be because they're coming through the rain clouds. Some parts of the rain clouds is heavy, and then they come out of the rain clouds on the other side. It becomes very light, so they're very unpredictable, my guys in the choppers. So unfortunately, I need to make sure that they're providing me some accurate details here, because
as long as they're flying accurately, that's fine.
Exactly. No, but he is telling me that it is coming. So these drivers need to brace for that condition, and you know they have all the telemetry. They have the best crew in their teams respectively, the crew at Me Cougar Drive Development, the Cougar, you have the Robo Sport Racing, Bundaberg Rum Racing, and also ISO Racing have all the top engineers, and they are providing feedback to their drivers about when this rain period is coming through. So it's really about just trying to maximize what you've got now, really use the tires when you can, and really try and put yourself up and towards the pecking order here. So, but we've got some great results, some great drivers putting in some good performances here. We see Charles Nathaniel in 4th place for ISO Esports. We always used to see him towards the front end, but I've never actually been able to see him maintain pace and maintain consistency. And Charles Nathaniel's putting on a fantastic display of consistency and also running with the leaders and not losing ground to them.
Yeah, and he goes purple again in Sector 1. That'll be slightly due to the slipstream, but he had a great line through Eau Rouge. Nice and fast, just dodging the penalty. The stewards have a really good camera view of the white line there at Eau Rouge, and they want to make sure no one's cutting that corner. Very tricky corner to get right, as is Rivage that they go through now. Downhill and slightly off camber. You've got to be very, very patient here at Spa on the throttle and very precise on the brake. And oh, Colin is looking very sideways. I suspect, you know, we've usually seen, Nick, that these front-engined and front-wheel drive cars very, very brutal on their front tires, and I suspect Colin might be suffering now. He was trying to keep up with the likes of Hill, who's just flying out the front, and Sean Parker when he was fighting with him for P2, and I suspect the tires will start to go off for a lot of these drivers, and I think we're seeing the effect of that on Colin right now. But yeah,
well, you called it at the start of the broadcast. It's all about that mechanical grip. It's all about really just trying to preserve those front tires and use them when you can. And unfortunately, it looks like for Mitch Collin, he's used them up a fair bit. But what do I see here? I see wipers going on for a brief second there.
Yeah,
you are teasing us. Are you teasing us, Charles? Unfortunately, but it is staying on here. It was a little bit of a hit there of the wipers, and then it just stopped there. The wipers are on.
He wants the job of the camera crew and the chopper, doesn't he?
Absolutely. So he's got the wipers on. I want to see if anybody else has got the wipers on. I don't see anybody else here. I don't see wipers from Mitch Collins' car. I don't see anything from Choppers. I see So as we see Mick Hill in the pit lane. So this is a very early call. So he's seeing something that no one else is because everyone is still staying out. Sean Parker now takes the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix. And here it is, George. The rain has actually come down.
Oh, it has just started immediately.
Literally, it has just started. So all the drivers are coming through to the pit straight now, onto the back straight, through to Camel and through Eau Rouge and Radion. These guys are going to have a long 2.5 minutes to get around the track. And look at the intensity. Cars just sliding about, drifting through Radion. They can't keep the car in a straight line. The top four, actually, we have Sean Parker, Mitch Cullen, Charles Nathaniel, and Ben Churchill, all
I think we might have lost
the strategy well.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, we lost the comms for a second. I think the rain, as always, is doing and playing tricks on the Kiwi broadcast systems that we brought down over here to Europe. But crikey, you're right. This is going to be an absolute disaster.
Colin just goes deep.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to be a disaster.
Rivage.
Yeah.
Just going through deep through Rivage. I think the best thing that these guys can do now is really just try and bring the traction control and at least keep some sort of mechanical grip at their disposal, because, and no pun intended, because Disposable Hero is in 5th place. He's the first of the drivers on the wet tires, but he's actually not on wets. I did see there on the timing board there, he's on the intermediate tires. So he's thinking that the rain is not intensive enough to jump on the wet tires. So I did see, I believe it was Matt Kutcher and Stephen Harrison all on the wet tires, and down below as well, all on the wet. So me, Cougar, trying something different, but this rain is absolutely coming down. It is bucketing down, so I'm definitely going to pay my money towards my chopper, towards my guy in the chopper. But you can see there, Ben Churchill really going too deep on the exit, running very wide there through Fagnos, and then coming through on the exit of Puon. He was really struggling to get that car stopped. Coming through Stabilo, and you can see the top three. They are really relatively close to each other, the top three, and I don't know how these top three have done it, but they've come through. Not too many mistakes there. We can see Sean Parker's dropping down the order a lot there. So now Mitch Collin has taken the lead and all these drivers are coming into the pit lane. Look how wet the track has gone from the previous lap to this lap here, George.
Oh, it's unbelievable, and I think there's a penalty there for Colin as well. So he's run and he's just appeared off the track at bus stop. They can't stop. Oh, Sean Parker disappears as well, so that actually elevates temporarily Charles Nathaniel into the lead of this race. He's got into the wall at the pit lane. Sean Parker doesn't know where to go.
Wow, this is absolutely insane scenes, ladies and gentlemen. As we can see here, Ben Churchill really struggling to get the car pointed straight. He's trying to come through, not cause any contact with Mick Hill in first place. You can see there, he's just got no grip whatsoever. So the boys up ahead, unfortunately, it was a nice little brief moment there for Charles Nathaniel to be up to first place and be sneaky and get the inside line. But unfortunately, the track is so damp and so wet. He had no grip turning left into the pit lane, and unfortunately caused a bit of a blockage towards both Sean Parker and Mitch Collin, and even now Ben Churchill's just now coming to the pit lane. So the leaders so far, we have Mick Hill in first place, Matt Kutcher, who's actually come through with a strategic masterclass here and is actually going to get ahead of Mitch Collin in first place. As we can see, Charles Nathaniel's come out of the pit lane onto those intermediate tyres. We see Sean Parker on the wets, and we saw Mitch Collin on the intermediates as well here. So some different strategies here for some of the drivers here, but so far the big winners in this race, in this sequence of pit stops, is Kingsley Hoey up into third place, and that's comes from out of nowhere, George.
He's come out of the woodwork, and it is raining cats and dogs right now, but yeah, Kingsley Hoey, what a fantastic strategy call there. He saw it early. He was further down the field, so he might have had a little bit more time out there to get these tires warmed up, and he's had a fantastic lap, no mistakes at all, as he's come out into the rain and not able to get ahead of Griffo. But Griffo hasn't got warm tires, he's gone very wide. So is Kingsley though. This will bring Harrison into it, and Charles Nathaniel as well. So the conditions are not intermediate conditions, Nick. This is looking like wet conditions right now, and for all those on intermediates, they're going to find themselves potentially at the mercy of those on wet tires, because even those guys on wet tires are struggling. They're struggling to keep it on track, struggling to slow down the cars. The tires are going to be very, very cold here. It was already a reasonably cold circuit, as we did start with a very damp circuit. And Kingsley is really struggling up ahead. He's lost, going to lose a position here to Harrison. Harrison goes up into 4th position. And Matt Kuchar as well, another one of the winners here in the strategy calls. I think some teams must have had a slightly wider radius, maybe able to talk to the helicopter crews of their own or something, and just saw it coming. But it just started. It just started raining cats and dogs out of nowhere. Those top, what were the top 4 on slicks, just suffering so much. Through goes Sean Parker in the 83 car, and Kingsley is now at the risk of losing yet another position.
Yeah, also keep in mind there, Sean Parker did put on the wet tyres. So we have Stephen Harrison and Sean Parker on the wets. Everyone else is on the intermediate tyres. Poey leaves too much space there for Sean Parker. Just runs it wide there. So Sean Parker's going to go into the inside line through Stavilo. And he'll be taking 5th place away from the driver in Kingsley Hoey. And then we also have Charles Nathaniel. Then I can see a mistake here from Tony Griffin, unless he had to serve a penalty there. I'm not too sure why he's down the order there, but we can see some great driver assists as we look on board with Mitch Collin as he goes through to Blanchimont. We can just see the catastrophic conditions that they're on. Let's see if we can get an onboard footage of what it's like on his POV, because my goodness, it is so misty. You cannot see a thing around this tracks, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars in this battle pack here, George, and you're trying to find your way through this battle pack through all that mist. How can you find space?
Oh, it's a very big challenge, and actually Formula One is amongst all the other motorsports as well, including our TCR Cup. And how can you drive in these conditions? This could be safety car conditions if we have any incidents, but all the drivers keeping it on track fantastically well, showing how much skill they've got at controlling these TCR Cup cars. We have actually heard from Mick Collin, from Bundaberg Red Racing, that they had a power outage, so they lost the weather data, so they weren't able to predict, and they were trying to look around at the other pit lane guys, see when they get a pit, but just got it all wrong. They thought Hill had made a mistake, so they decided to stay out. Then suddenly there's rain everywhere on the entire circuit, but great onboards right here. It's so difficult to see what's going on. Some defensive action going on here between Griffo and Collin.
Yeah, so unfortunately there for the Bundaberg Red Racing, a crew in 8th place. As you can see, there's just really trying to gain so much advantage in the braking zone there. As we can see there up ahead there, Ricky Rick for Track Stars Racing, he was down the order. He was on the first lap there, George. He was in last place, and he's up into P7 with a great strategy call there from the Track Stars Racing team to get him back up into P7, right behind Charles Nathaniel. And you got the guys as well, for example, as Sean Parker trying to start thinking about making a move on Kingsley Hoey for position 4 of this race. As you can see, Stephen Harrison really just pulling away from this battle pack. He wants to get out of this before anything dramatic happens, because one slip of the tire onto that white surface, onto the white painted lines there, you're going to be in huge trouble there. Sean Parker's gone for the move on Kingsley Hoey up ahead. But as we can see there as well, some drivers are really not liking these conditions so far. You can definitely tell, the 2 different tire conditions between who is on the intermediates and who is on the wet tires. As we can see, Sean Parker just goes a bit too deep there, going through Fagnay. But as well, it's all about the racing lines as well here, George. It's about adapting to a different racing line. You can, what they call what most motorsport enthusiasts call is the go-kart line. You've got to really just run the car around the outside, and that's where you find all the grip, because that's where all the standing water is, and these tires need a lot of water to cool them down and to provide extra grip.
Exactly right. Yeah, you've got to adjust to the conditions, and the racing line is definitely the most significant of that. Things like avoiding the curbs, because the curbs become absolute death when they've got water on them. Even if you're running an intermediate or a wet tire, it can be very, very tricky to control the car, especially when you're trying to put the power down. We heard with some of the onboards just before with Colin, very, very difficult to get any power down here, and trying to stop this Kingsley. Oh, there was nearly contact there.
That was close.
Woo, wow, that was close. I did also see just before at Stavelot, we had a little bit of contact between Colin and Mad Rick. But both drivers making sure that they got through the corner correctly. Very difficult, especially when you've got close quarters racing, so you're adjusting to a racing line. Down the inside is Madrick having a little look. It's Colin having a look. He can't make a move there on Charles, and Griffo gets a bit of a cutback there. What a great move from Griffo.
Yeah, he's just gone for 2 for 1 there for Tony Griffin, but the inside line is not really the part of the track where you want to be taking moves, but it's worked for him for the Juice Motorsports entry, up 2 positions in the span of 1 corner through the source. So very nice strategic move there by Tony Griffin in car 62 there. You can see all the cars as well just coming through, just through that mist there. Lap 11 of 34, about to approach the third of the way of the distance here in this Trak Racer TCR Cup here for this Enduro. We can see Ricky Rick going for a move on Mitch Collin, thinking about a move on the Bundaberg driver, the championship leader. And this is also very important as well. It is double points on offer. Mitch Collin in 7th place, and look who's up in 1st, Nick Hill, and he's got clear track for days. He hasn't got anyone ahead. He hasn't even got anyone behind him. All he can do is just run his own race and just let Mitch Collin fight for this championship.
Yeah, that's right. And Harrison here has been doing a brilliant job. He qualified well down the grid. He does have Sean Parker looking very strong behind him, but that's the start of the battle pack that you do not want to get caught up in. You want to keep that clean air as much as possible. Right now, he's got a nice gap in front of him to Matt Kutcher, who's also running in a bit of a doldrums now and running very sideways into the Wagner's corners. That was a very close call there for the Diffusion Race Engineering driver. Crikey, what control to hang on to that. I don't know if he's running intermediates, but given the amount of grip he's got, I suspect he is on them intermediate tires. The Kiwi team there not choosing for the wet tire. They might have misread the weather information that was coming out on their screens, because the wet tires would seem to be optimal. I think the really interesting thing, Nick, is going to be what happens when this track starts to dry up. Eventually, the rain might start to subside. We may see the rain stop. I don't know yet. From what I can tell on the weather radars and what you're telling me from the helicopter, it is set to continue like this for a while, which means all those on intermediates are going to be ruining their decision to be out there on the IMs. They'll be looking to get onto the wet tires at their next stop, but no point doing an extra stop now. The pit stop here is very long, so not worth it.
I'm just looking at that battle pack down from 5th place downwards. It looks absolutely scary. The proximity that they have amongst each other is absolutely insane. The drivers are doing so well just to keep the cars steady. As I say that, Charles Nathaniel has gone for a bit of a skating around through the bus stop there, so he lost all control. He was turning left instead of turning right going into the bus stop there, so that's unheard of for Charles Nathaniel. He's well down into 9th place now, unfortunately, after that mistake there, so losing a position to Ricky Rick in 8th place, who now takes 8th place away from Charles Nathaniel. He's just really struggling to pull the car up there, so he was one of the drivers on the intermediate tires as well, George, so you can definitely tell some of the drivers running those intermediates. But I have a theory that some of the drivers, that because they are running intermediates, if they think the rain is dying down, they will definitely be coming back. So that's the thing. When you do run the risk of running the intermediate tires, you don't have to do a pit stop. You don't have to take that extra pit stop. And the pit stop transit around this track is so long. You can have a cup of tea. You can go down to your local. You can go down to the local shopping center, buy some clothes for your girlfriend, for your wife, for your partner. But go out, hang out with your mates for some drinks, and have a good time here in Belgium. And then by the time you come back, you're still in the pit lane.
Yeah, exactly right. You can just put it on autopilot and just roll it down the pit lane. It's so slow, and it's even worse when you've got the 24 hours. So this is the 24-hour layout for the pit lane, not the 24-hour layout of the circuit, as I understand it. But yeah, that pit lane is absolutely brutal. So yeah, these intermediate runners, I guess they might know something that we don't. These guys in the engineering pit, you'd hope that they do. Mad Rick going for a bit of a slide there down the hill. Crikey, good control there from the Track Stars racing driver to keep things consistent. Kingsley Hoey under a bit of pressure now from Colin. He's currently our leader in the championship, so being down in 7th place at the moment, and I suspect he's on the intermediate tires as well. He's pushing and giving it absolutely everything he can to get ahead. But yeah, if the conditions start to change,
I can see the drivers using. I'm seeing the drivers using the curb there, and it just really just gives me it just gives me the squids on the eyes. I'm just like saying, I can't look at the drivers running on the curbing there. It absolutely makes me scared as the drivers are trying to negotiate this wet surface here at Spa-Francorchamps. So you can see there the standing water is absolutely incredible. The water is not going whatsoever, and the rain just keeps coming down here, George, as the drivers are starting to. You could say, I would like to say they're starting to get comfortable in these conditions, but who is comfortable in wet weather racing? No one, unfortunately. But so far, I think the only driver that's comfortable is the man that's leading this race here in Mick Hill in first place as he comes through the source for the 13th lap, well over a third of the distance here around this beautiful circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. Got a huge buffer over Matt Kutscher. I will say with Matt Kutscher, we're all credit due to the man at Diffusion Race Engineering, put off a really good strategy to undercut Mitch Cullen, who's down in 7th place, and this can definitely help him when it comes to the championship fight later on for the final rounds.
Yeah,
if
correct.
Things stay as they are.
Assuming they do, yeah, that's right. Because anything can happen. Even if you're up here as Mick Hill in the number 3 car, you make one major mistake here, you can put the car in the wall, get damage, and that can be a huge detriment to your race. But that gap, I mean, he's got the whole of the Kemmel straight between him and Matt Kutscher, and looking really clean in these conditions. So looks like these guys have been preparing for these kinds of situations. Very strong performance, of course, by Andrew Scott in the Division 1 race, and he's been running away with the championship up there in Div 1, I should say. Down there in terms of our opinion, we do love Div 2. Div 2 is probably our favorite division to watch because the racing is so close. So much happens on track, but Div 1, you do have a lot happening on track, of course, but the quality of drivers means it's maybe a little bit more predictable. I don't want to say too much here, Nick, before I dig a hole for myself and yourself in the commentary box.
Yeah. What I actually liked there from that camera view from Mick Hill's entry, he actually wasn't using the curving, so he was actually avoiding the curving and then pulling the car to the left there. So he's really trying to find the wet patches around this circuit here. But running on intermediate tyres, you don't want to really be finding too much standing water, otherwise the car will have that bit of snap oversteer at the front end. So very interesting lines, very interesting tactics there. Not really using the curves there, as we can see there on the exit of Wagner, and then coming through to Stavilo. Just runs it, just almost kisses the line there, not touching the curves, not touching the white lines, just touches it there. But the car does naturally understeer through Stavilo, so you do, unfortunately, have to sacrifice a little bit of speed to not touch the lines, but it is flat around that area. There's no undulation or gradients concerning that corner, so he can more or less risk it.
We can hear the rain from the cameras on track. It's just so heavy still. No sign that it's going to let up, and especially through the Stavelot-Blanchimont area. Seems to be particularly heavy down there. The rest of the track maybe not so heavy at the moment. It's really difficult to get an idea of where it's raining more or less. At the moment, it looks like it's just torrentially raining everywhere on circuit. But yeah, as you said, these lines, and you can see a great example of it there from McHill in the number 3 car. He's just, he's creeping around the corners really smooth. He's keeping the car stable. He's keeping all 4 tires on the circuit to maximize the grip and really managing the weight transfer of the car. That is how you manage to get speed in these conditions and keep the car under control. So hats off to a masterful performance here by Mick Hill. Absolutely brilliant, but you're right, nothing lost on Matt Kutscher. Doing the same, doing very well. In fact, I'll send a quick message down to broadcasting, tell them to stay on Matt Kutscher. Let's compare the lines that Matt Kutscher is taking, and then we'll go down and look at Sean Parker and then Harrison as well, and see if anyone else is riding the curbs in these very tricky conditions.
Yeah, and as you were talking there, I'm just looking through the leaderboard. The leaderboard is just chopping and changing with drivers swapping positions. Madrick went from 8th to 5th place in the span of the back straight through Blanchimont, through the bus stop, and then through to La Source. He's gained a lot of positions now. He's one of the drivers on the wet tyres, so he's doing a very good job there to really gain through the field there. And he's now pulled a bit of a gap over Kingsley, who's in 6th place. So I will have to give my credit where all credit's due to the drivers such as Stephen Harrison, Ricky Rick, and Kingsley Hoey, 4th, 5th, and 6th place. When those guys, as we more or less see them down towards the back end, back towards the rear of the field, or the latter half of the top 10, and Now, these boys are doing a fantastic job getting these cars in these mixed conditions and tricky conditions up from 4th to 6th place and really putting themselves well ahead of the likes of Tony Griffin and Mitch Collin in 7th and 8th place. So very good strategy calls there by all the drivers respectively, and especially, as we said as well, with Matt Kuchar, some great strategy calls there for the Fusion Race Engineering. But I guess for all these guys, it's all about just trying to find the conditions there. You can just see it's so misty, it's so windy. The rain is absolutely incredible there. We can see there, Rick just using the curving there. Not very ideal to run the curves there. The driver's really running the cars wide onto that curvingness. And I don't see the rain easing up anytime soon. So these guys are playing a bit of a risk here, going for the wide line and running onto the curves there. So they're doing a great job no matter what. I will give them that. They are doing a fantastic job keeping these cars straight and not facing the wrong direction, touch wood. But as we look down outside the top 8, let's have a look to see who's actually who's in the top 8 or outside the top 8. We've got Charles Nathaniel, who's suffered the worst, unfortunately, was running up very high, was provisional P1 going into the pit lane before he caused a bit of a blockage to Sean Parker and Mitch Collin. He's down in 9th place, and then we have Hasseldine inside the top 10 for Extreme Motorsports, where his teammate in Kane Patton did a fantastic job finishing in 6th place in Division 1. And then we have Ben Churchill. So this is another surprise that we have with Ben Churchill down in 11th place there. He was the driver that really suffered the most from that interchangeable conditions from soft to intermediates. He went that extra lap, just like the top 3 did in Nathaniel, Collin, and Parker, but he suffered the worst out of all of it, and he's down in 11th place, unfortunately. So Ben Churchill has got a lot of work to do if he wants to get any sort of points, any crucial points in his championship. And then we have Karma Foster in 12th place, running down the rear of the field there. So we also had a retirement actually, I'm not so sure who. I believe there was one retirement from this race. I'm not so sure who it could be.
We'll have to look down in the pit lane. We'll try and find out for you who has pulled out of this race. I think it might be Troy Britnell, just looking at my timing sheets here.
Yes, that's actually correct. Yes, so unfortunately, Troy Britnell has actually come down with a, as I did see there, and I am getting confirmation from the team themselves. It was Troy Britnell that did retire from this race here. So obviously the car not liking the conditions, maybe made a bit of too much contact with the walls around here with the guardrail, and maybe just picked up some damage that they couldn't fix. So unfortunately for Trak Race Tech, while there was a great result in Division 1 for Shane Oudard, unfortunately for Troy Britnell, it is just down the order and unfortunately out of this race.
Yeah, you know who I feel really sorry for right now is the cameramen and the stewards out on track. It is absolutely pouring, and it has been, I think, for the last, 7 or 8 laps at least. So that's nearly 20 minutes of really heavy rain here at Spa so far. It is not looking like it's easing up at all. So all the teams who decided to go on the intermediate option, thinking that, hey, maybe there'll be a break in the rain, you know, Spa can be unpredictable. Sorry, this time Spa has proven you wrong. It is being predictably wet today, and the wet option tyre seems to have been the right call. It will be interesting to see when there's a crossover, if there's a crossover between the intermediates and the wet tyres. We do know, with the speed that these cars can go, they do clear the moisture off the car. Oh, and Harrison. Oh, wow, how has he kept that on the tarmac?
Tokyo drifting through Pouhon in Belgium, absolutely incredibly here by Stephen Harrison. Keeps the car straight, doesn't face the Armco on the left-hand side there. Some great performances there, really losing control there, going through Fergnose, his car 41 for CP Motorsports, and right behind him is Ricky Rick for Trackstars Racing. You have to remember, they're not fighting themselves out in the championship, but they are fighting themselves out in the teams championship, where Trackstars is only leading by 3 points over CP Motorsports. So Madrick has to really get this car ahead of Stephen Harrison's 41 to be any chances of increasing the gap over CP Motorsports, where we saw Tyler Lansdale put an impressive performance and get P2, and unfortunately for Dean Van der Zandt in Division 1 finished 8th place. So far it's going to advantage towards Trackstars at the end of Division 1. That it just clips the grass there, did Ricky Rick, unfortunately. So he loses a bit of time to Stephen Harrison, but my goodness, the battle between these two, it's going to be a huge battle between CP and Trackstars for the team title, and so far they're providing some great action here in Division 2 with Stephen Harrison and Ricky Rick in the driving position.
Absolutely right. Nick, I think we're coming up to the point where we will start looking at taking a little bit of a break here in the commentary box, because it is a very, very long race, so we'd like to go and have a bit of a break ourselves. We'll, of course, leave the race on for you guys, so you'll be seeing plenty of the action continue on track. But I think before we do that, Nick, it might be nice to go and get ourselves updated with all the telemetry that we do get from these cars. And we'll see what the wear is on the tires, see how much fuel they've got in the tank. How does that sound?
Sounds fantastic. We'll actually be able to see who's on what tires, as we can see some of the drivers behind there really trying to make some moves there. As we can see, as we go through the telemetry, we can definitely confirm that Mick Hill is on the intermediate tires. He's doing a really good job there. He's actually being reeled in a little bit by Matt Kuchar, who's in second place. Right behind him for the Fusion Race Engineering, the tires that he's on is going to be brought up to us very shortly if our Kiwi camera crew can come through. He's on the wet tires, so that's why he's gaining so much time on Disposable Hero. So he's gaining in a lot of time there. You can see there for the lap time, 3-minute lap times, 2-minute 59s. And what can you say? The chops in Sean Parker, a 2-minute 27 on the dry tires. Wow, the pace difference is huge. But the man so far is pulling through is Sean Parker. So just like I called it, he was one of the drivers that was on the wet tires, and he's coming through. So far, the fastest man out of between him in the top 3 and fastest overall in the dry conditions. And then we have Stephen Harrison for CP Motorsports in Type 54 and Car 41 on the wet tires. He was actually one of the first drivers to be on the wet tires, as well as Matt Kuchar. So he's doing a great job in 4th place. And then we have Ricky Rick for Track Stars Racing, also on the wet tires. So these drivers are going to be favouring these tires for the moment, and they have to really use these tires to their advantage to close up to the intermediate runner and Disposable Hero in Mick Hill. Then 6th place, we have Tony Griffin on the wet tires as well, and then Mitch Collin right behind 7th place. A little bit confused to why Colin is actually down there in 7th place, but I can see why now with the telemetry. He's actually nursing some damage on the front right side of his suspension and front splitter, so that's why he's not able to progress further up the grid there, unfortunately. So for Mitch Collin, he's got damage and on intermediate tires, so he's got a lot of work to do there. Ben Churchill has come through the pack as well. We saw him down in 11th place there, has been gaining time. He's now inserted himself inside the top 8 on the wet tires. And then Charles Nathaniel in 9th place on those intermediates, really struggling in these conditions, as he's just about to get past, or nearly get an opportunistic pass, is Mark Hasseldine for Extreme Motorsports in 10th place. He's also on the wet tires there. So far, the wets are suiting these conditions so far, but we can see the track is starting to dry up just that little bit. And maybe the conditions in the rain has started to drop off a little bit. The intensity has dropped off, and we are starting to see potentially those intermediate tires will be coming back into play. We have Kingsley Hoey in 11th place on the intermediate tires, sporting some front splitter damage for the privateer in car 63. And then down in 12th place, we have Karma Foster in for Ned Racing on the wet tires as well there. So that's all the telemetry that we have for us here at MotorMotion E-Series. So we're going to take a bit of a break here, ladies and gentlemen. So stay tuned as you watch all the action here at MotorMotion E-Series for round 6 of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. So don't go away, grab yourself a drink, and stay tuned for the latter half of this endurance race here at Spa-Francorchamps.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. We are back from our quick break in the commentary box, and we both grabbed a glass of water just from hanging a cup out the commentary box window because it was still running pretty wet out there. However, you can see on track, nothing really missed there. We had a few interesting moments from Ben Churchill during the break, but there is, in fact, a dry line starting to evolve. Despite the wet conditions still out on track, there is a dry line happening on track. So, Nick, things are about to heat up here at Spa for the remaining half of this race.
Yeah, and the drivers have just crossed the start-finish line. They've gone past officially the halfway mark around this 7-kilometer circuit here at Spa-Francorchamps. So they've done half race distance, half in the dry, or probably not even, probably a third in the dry, and then the rest of the condition was in the wet. So, but now we've got these changeable conditions here that we were predicting. The drivers are going to be starting to find the dry line, and those that are on the wet tires, the tires that drivers gambled on with the intermediates, this is the conditions that will suit them perfectly. You're going to be seeing the guys like Mick Hill right up there in first place really start to pull away from Matt Kuchar in second place. You can even see Charles Nathaniel in ninth place. He might be able to get some pace on his intermediate tires finally, but we'll find out shortly in due time. As we saw there as well, Mitch Collin, he was also on the intermediates as well, so he might be finding some pace as well, but he did have some damage. He hasn't come into the pit lane during the break, so he's up into P6, so he's gained some time. He's got pulled away from Tony Griffin in seventh place. Even with damage on his car, he's still finding pace around there. So far with a 2:56 there on his last lap there, so that's actually quite faster than some of the drivers that we saw ahead on the previous couple of laps there. So really good, shows a good testament for Mitch Collin that he really struggled in that early phase, took a gamble, took a huge gamble on the intermediate tires, but so far it's looking to work out very nicely for Mitch Collin as he's starting to get some really good tire temps through his car. And it's all about these wet weather tire drivers in Kuchar, Sean Parker, Stephen Harrison, and Ricky Rick. These guys need, and I can't emphasize this enough, they need to find the wet patch. They can't go off the track to find the wet patch because that's illegal in racing. Unfortunately, you're not going to make 7 kilometers. You're going to probably make 7.1 kilometers of this circuit here. But these guys need to find this wet line. They need to get off the racing line, probably put themselves on the inside line, run some really wide lines around through the source, for example, even through Kemmel and onto the back straight and through Buon. Really just try and find yourself some wet patch, because these guys are just going to really struggle. As you can see there, Tony Griffin trying to hunt for a wet patch and really cool his tires down, because the wet tires, when it has the wet tires on a dry track, they overheat, and they overheat pretty bad. So for Griffin, he's doing a good job trying to find a dry line. As you can see there, Charles Nathaniel in 8th place on the intermediate tires. He's coming through. He's fast in these conditions here. He's trying to look for a move through Rouge and Blanchimont. Surely not. They're going to go side by side. Charles Nathaniel pulls the move before Rouge. A great move there by the ISO driver in car 589. This is the perfect conditions for intermediate drivers to really, really hone in their speed and really take advantage of it before we start seeing the dry tires coming out to play.
Correct. They have so much more grip on exit now because of the dry line that is starting to evolve. And it looks like it's really, really dry down towards the bus stop chicane through the first straight. Not quite as dry here through sector 2, but that dry line is starting to really, really evolve. So as you said, they're going to start to really find some pace here. Down into the 49s now is Charles Nathaniel. So he's flying now in comparison to these wet drivers, and yeah, they'll be desperately offline. The wet drivers will be trying to find a way to cool down the tires. Their teams might be on the radio to some helicopter flyovers, and they'll be chucking cups of water out the window of the helicopter, trying to get some extra wetness down on the track, see what they can do. But yeah, at the moment it's all to play for the intermediate runners. It might have paid off.
Look how much time he's gained in the span of a few corners. He's closed up onto Mitch Collin, and Mitch Collin right behind, as we said, on the intermediate tires, but has damage, so he's going to be compromised a little bit, trying to battle Ricky Rick and Stephen Harrison on those wet tires. So the lap times are going to be incredible. So let's see if we can go on board with Charles Nathaniel in 7th place in car 589 for ISO Esports. You can see the grip advantage that he's got there. You can see there no wipes at all. He did tease us, George, putting the wipers on for a bit of a show there, but it actually turned out to be true. So the wipers were on for the wet conditions. They're off. It is basically bone dry here. So these tires are going to suit the intermediate tires, the intermediate conditions. You can see they're just drifting through Blanchimont. As we can see some drivers coming into the bus stop. As we can see, Ricky Rick just goes offline and contact made between Mitch Collin, Charles Nathaniel, and we can see there Ricky Rick suffered the worst of the wet tire runners are coming into the pit lane, getting rid of those wet tires. We can see some intermediate drivers as well coming off those tires as well. So they're probably thinking that it is time to put on those dry tires, because it is, you can see there from telemetry there, it is starting to dry up, and then it's drying up drying up faster than expected there. We can see Tony Griffin still hunting for the wet line around this circuit. He's not able to find any. He's still holding on to P5, but wow, that was a big mistake there by Rick, and he collected, unfortunately, Mitch Collin as well as Charles Nathaniel.
Yeah, too right. And Colin at this point is thinking, wow, it's gone from bad to worse. Time for me to consider alternative strategies. And as he said, he'll probably be thinking about, hey, if I jump on those soft tires and if I keep it under control, then maybe, just maybe, I've got a shot of getting up ahead of Matt Kutscher and Sean Parker. At this point, I think Hill is basically out of reach. We've got a question now to answer, Nick. Was the wet strategy the right call, or were the inters the right call? We saw so many people losing out a huge number of positions on the intermediate tires, and also losing the car, picking up damage, running wide, picking up penalties and all sorts. But the wet tire runners now having to pit maybe a bit earlier than they would have liked to have to, having to risk a soft strategy towards the end, and they'll find themselves, if they don't come into the pits, falling down the grid very, very quickly. So we're going to find out towards the end of the race who's made the right decision. But I think at the moment, if we look up the top, the intermediate tires that are on Mick Hill, they're looking strong. They're in the right conditions. He can go for another few laps, and then he can do a short stint on the soft tires.
Yeah, but he's not actually pulling in some fast lap times there. Well, actually, between the top four, you can see Charles Nathaniel is actually the fastest out of the top four. So he's had a 2:43 on that last lap, and Mick Hill set himself a 2:44. But we can see that Matt Kutscher is not letting go. He's on the wet tires. He did set a 2:44. He's matching Mick Hill's pace there from intermediate and wet tires. So the pace similarities are no different by the looks of it. So you can say it is a bit of a win for some of the drivers, especially for Matt Kutscher, who's up into P2 and firmly in P2. And then you have the likes of Sean Parker, Charles Nathaniel, and Tony Griffin really in close quarters of each other. So we can see there Matt Kutscher's now coming to the pit lane. Off the wet tyres he goes. Surely he's going to go into the soft tyres. So we can see some more drivers come to the pit lane. There goes Sean Parker. Charles Nathaniel's going to stay out for another lap. Tony Griffin's going to stay out for another lap on those wet tyres. So very bold strategy here. Bold strategy for Tony Griffin. But, you know, he's keeping it honest. He's keeping it clean. And he's actually gaining a bit of time there on Charles Nathaniel. You can see they're still hunting for that wet line. So those tyres are definitely overheating on that Juiced Motorsports car.
That's right.
And again, you can see they're really just trying to cool those tyres down as much as you can. A 2:41 lap there by Tony Griffin. I believe that might be the fastest out of the top four. So yeah, you know, you can see it's a bit of a 50-50 call on what tyres everyone runs. You know, it can benefit those on the wet tyres in the early stages, but now you're getting through this crossover period where you have to keep this car on the track there. So we see Matt Kutscher, full fuel and all, in his car, soft tyres. He's going to run to the end, but the exit is where it's really crucial. It is very, very tricky around this circuit here. The exit of the pit lane is the hardest one, as we can see there. Karma Foster going for an outside move there. She's still on those wet tyres compared to Matt Kutscher. So Kutscher is just going to be tiptoeing this car around the track just for a little bit longer. He can't do anything. You can't make a move, otherwise the car's going to go spearing into that car, 666 Ned Racer.
Correct. So you take 1 inch off that dry line now, and or touch one curb and or go across one white line, which is what he's looking to do. Oh, Matt Kutscher tempting fate here on the soft tyres, but you can see the grip difference here. We're hearing we're going to get an onboard here as he does. Whoa, he's going to risk it. He's going to risk it on the wet line past Karma Foster. This is actually for position. Karma Foster is technically in 5th position at the moment, provisionally, because she will need to pit very soon. And is that Sun? That's Sun coming out onto the track. Wow. So the conditions really changing up. Yeah.
That's the first all day. I've seen Sun all week.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, it only didn't last very long, but
it's gone.
yeah, it's gone almost immediately. It's gone as quickly as it showed up. But yeah, we saw there that the soft tires will actually have a huge advantage in these conditions. In comes our leader, Mick Hill. He's in on those intermediate tires. He's got 36 liters in the tank, so he'll be looking to fuel up, get onto the soft tires, and get out there. These are some interesting lines being taken by Matt Kuchar. Very risky, but he will be able to shave some time down off of Mick Hill. Not that he's going to catch him. I don't think he's going to be able to, because he'll be coming down towards the bus stop chicane. Oh, whoa, and getting on the white line on exit, stable up. Oh my. Nick, these are the moments where we've got our hands on our head, just trying to shield our eyes because we're scared of what we're watching.
Oh, absolutely right. And unfortunately for Kuchar, like if he had just kept his car ahead of Karma Foster in the first few corners, he was actually starting to close up a little bit on Disposable Hero there. But as we can see there, Mick Hill has come in to the pit lane for the last time, thrown on the soft tires. He was in no attempt at all to close up towards Mick Hill, who is in first position at the moment. So you can see Mark Hasseltine coming through on the outside line, still on those wet tires. So he now takes the lead. But it's going to be not for long for the Extreme Motorsport, so he can have his glory of fame. Taking the lead of this race here is Mark Hasseltine for Extreme Motorsports, but Mick Hill on those soft tires. We'll see him come through pretty quickly, pretty soon there. But I will say that, for Matt Kuchar especially, he's done a very good job there to get his car in perfect position. The strategy of all strategies for Matt Kuchar, he's up into P2, he's keeping the car clean, he's not looking to make too many mistakes there. As we can see, Ben Churchill, he's gone for an undercut, so he's actually undercut Charles Nathaniel there. So being on these tires for just that little bit longer on the soft tires, so just a one-lap undercut, he's up into P4, and this man has come from out of nowhere. It's been an up and down roller coaster for Ben Churchill, but now it looks like he's solidifying himself inside the top 4.
Great job by the Road Stick Racing driver and the number 8 car. It's been a bit of a masterclass for him in some respects, because coming from lower in the grid after what was not an ideal qualifying early on in qualifying, he looked to have some serious pace. He was provisionally P3 in qualifying at one point or another, so it looked like he had the pace, but unfortunately in the race just falling off a little bit. I think he was one of the drivers that stayed out on the softs. He actually had the worst time, as you said earlier, out on the soft tires when it started raining. But look how sunny it is down here through Rivage. The sun has in fact come out. It wasn't teasing. It's come out. It's in full swing now. So still got to be careful of the curbs and the inside of the corners where there are puddles of water. But if you can stay off of those, the soft tires are going to be fast. And Charles Nathaniel here on a bit of a charge. But behind him is Griffo Tony for Juiced Motorsports. And then we've got Sean Parker. Now he has fallen a significant distance. He was in P3, I believe. But now having fallen quite significantly off, I don't know what's happened there actually.
Yeah, so he obviously looked like he had an in lap there with a 3-minute, I believe they're 3-minute 8 there, and then unfortunately they're very tentative lap there on the soft tires. So you're really struggling to come up to temperatures on his car. So from P3 down to P7, so he's got a lot of work to do. He's got the pace. We did see in qualifying it was only 2 100 slower than the provisional pole position time in Mitch Collin from Bundaberg Red Racing. And actually, speaking of Mitch Collin, look where he is. He's down in 9th place. Had to fix up some damage from earlier on. He's still got the wipers on. He's trying to show off for the cameras here tonight around the track.
Oh, we've had a small break in our communications. Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I can definitely see the weather is not raining anymore, Mitch, so you can turn your wipers off. You've had your fun.
That's right.
Yeah, just don't cause more contention and more panic for us here in the commentary box, because we've got enough trouble. We've got enough trouble as it is at the moment there. But Mitch Collin in 9th place there. We can see Mark Hasseltine is just coming to the pit lane. You can see there on the left-hand side, he is topping up the car with some fuel there. But if he can work this out very nicely, he's going to put himself not only in P7, but he can be ahead of the likes of Hasseldine, of Hoey, and Mitch Collin. But he's gone onto the medium tires, and you can see the exit onto the pit lane is so tricky there. So you can see there, Kingsley Hoey's going for an outside move onto the wet stuff. He keeps it steady on the track there, but Hasseldine on the medium tyres there, so very different strategy that everyone else is running. He's only got about 12 laps to go on those medium tyres. Maybe he's trying to pick up some early race data from the start of the race here, George. So maybe he's thinking maybe the soft tyres didn't last that long, so he's probably trying a different strategy on those mediums.
Yeah, that could be interesting. I mean, especially if the car has indicated that, hey, look, you know, it's not going to be good on the softs for a very long period of time. And oh, Colin goes for a spin. Oh, no, that is a disaster for Colin. He was finally looking like he could make up some positions after falling so far back in the field. Now he's second to last, still got his wipers on, and he's on the soft tyres. Oh, it couldn't have gotten any worse for Colin. He's our leader in the drivers' standings for Division 2. His rival in second place is in first position in a double points round. This is the worst situation Colin could have imagined. He's got another 11 laps here, about 26 minutes to pull something out of his hat, because he certainly needs to make some magic happen here today now.
And this has huge championship implications here, as potentially Mitch Collins is going to lose the lead of this championship if he stays in this position with Mick Hill in the prime position. Currently P1, all 90 points going towards the Mick Cooke driver if it stays as it is, but it's still a long way to go. We have an evolving track here between wet to dry. The drivers are still trying to find a line to try and make a move there, not go for the wet patch, because it is still very sketchy to go for an inside move there, because it's very bold there. As you can see there, Mitch Collins still toying us, running some interesting lines there. You can see there, Stephen Harrison going for an inside move there. He's got to get himself onto the dry part of the track as quickly as he can there. He's still there. We have Kingsley Hoey still fighting him through Blanchimont, but gives up that position to Stephen Harrison. He moves up into position 8. We saw Hasseldine have a bit of a moment there on the exit of Stavelo, so he really struggled to get his car steady. As we can see there, some drivers going for an inside move there. Kingsley Hoey going defensive on Ricky Rick in 10th place, and then we have Mitch Collin down the order. Not where we usually see him as well there. That's a really huge mistake there. And the race to forget, unfortunately, for Mitch Collin for Bundaberg Red Racing. As we said, in the famous words of Mark Scaife, it has huge championship implications, and so far, the advantage is going to Mick Hill.
Correct, and I'm wondering here, we just saw Kingsley Hoey jump onto the wet stuff again, the wet part of the line. I wonder if he's still running intermediate tyres or something. Surely not. He's keeping up with these guys at the moment.
Pace is there.
Yeah, pace is definitely there, but he decided to jump over to the what is the left-hand side of the pit straight, and that's where the water is. So interesting. I wonder if that was a preemptive defensive move of some kind that we have never seen before. But inventing some interesting slick-based racing lines here is Kingsley, but still doing very well. He's got now Colin behind him right on his bumper. He's not particularly fast through Lacombe there, is he? Let's see how he does through Ravage. I'm not sure if he's... surely he's on the slick tyres. I don't want to make a point of this, but...
I was good. Yeah, actually, I did look at that through the first timing sectors. He's now getting overtaken by Mitch Collin, who now moves into P10, but he did do a bit of a pushed pass there, unfortunately, so he does do the right thing, gives the position back to Kingsley Hoey. But I have a feeling there, yeah, he's running the wet line again there, so maybe, but he hasn't. So obviously... he hasn't made a pit stop at all, so he's still on. It looks like he's potentially on those medium tires. We'll have to get word from the crew in the car 63 and what tires they're running. But if he's running on the wet stuff and everyone else is running considerably faster, I did see there in the first sector he was 2.1 seconds slower than his fastest lap time. So I have a feeling that he might potentially be on those intermediates there. So unfortunately there, maybe a strategy call that didn't go the right way, maybe a break in the radio comms for Kingsley Hoey.
Yeah, quite possible, because that was what? Yeah, serving a penalty, but that's a heart and throat moment there for Rick, who's gone through as Hasseldine has served that penalty. But yeah, the penalty serving can be very brutal because the car limiter is briefly put on. In wet conditions, when that happens, it can actually spin the car around if you're not careful, if you're not prepared for it. So that was a heart and throat moment there for Hasseldine. Crikey.
Yeah, that would have caused a lot of carnage for Ricky Rick. Unfortunately, if he got the wrong end of that, that was just changing. And it's kind of like when you go walking through a shopping center, you're just trying to you start walking towards the person, then you dart left, you dart right, dart left, and then all you have to do is just grab him by the shoulder and say, "Mate, just go over there," and then you just walk straight.
That's right, yeah. You have to start using your hand out the window of the car. I'm going this way, all right? I'm going this way. Crikey.
Absolutely. Let's look through the field as we're about to have 10 laps to go until the end of this race. We've still got Mick Hill leading the way very comfortably as he's coming through Stavilo on lap 25 of 34. Then we have Matt Kuchar in second place, and then we have Ben Churchill, who's doing a fantastic job. He's up into the podium positions now in third place. So well done to the Road Sig Racing, putting on some good strategies now. Unfortunately, the strategy that didn't work for him running on those soft tyres has now has gotten for a bit of redemption for car number 8 in Road Sig Racing. Then we have Charles Nathaniel in fourth place, a good position for him and a well-received position there for the ICE driver. And then we have Sean Parker making a few moves up into P5 and keeping the car steady. And the gaps are kind of spreading between the top 6 there, because you can see there Tony Griffin not far behind, or a little bit further behind Sean Parker in 6th place, and then a huge gap over Stephen Harrison in 7th place. And this is where the battle pack is usually hanging about, the battle pack between 7th and now. It's an actual battle pack for 8th place, as we see Rick in 8th place, Hasseldine in 9th, and then Mitch Cullen in rounding up the top 10. And then in 11th place we have Karma Foster in 11th, and then we have Kingsley Hoey, who potentially looks like he's finally come into the pit lane and has gotten off those intermediates and now throw on some wet tyres. So not the strategy call for car 63, but still running in the race in 12th place.
Looking a lot more comfortable now is Kingsley Hoey. So these are the right lines. He's oh, well, that's not the right line, but he'll be feeling a lot more confident on those slick tyres now out here. He won't have to worry about jumping onto a wet line at all, and so he can take normal lines here around Spa, which is always a nice feeling because those are the fun lines, as we all know. Yeah, we actually saw Colin. He's still got his window wipers on. I don't know if he's having a little bit of a protest here to the team, maybe saying to them, hey, imagine if it rained suddenly. Do you want to keep me on the soft tyres or not? I'm not sure. But certainly some kind of protest to someone. Just needs to hit the button in the cockpit there and get those turned off. They'll be making quite the noise. But actually, speaking of noise, these cars, the TT Cup cars, been making some great noise around here, and the person making waves and noise especially is Hill. He's out front in the number 3 car for Cooke Driver Development, doing fantastically well this race. I think that intermediate strategy that he run was very good, but it only works when you're able to really control the car and keep it on track for a long period of time, Nick. I think that he's done that excellently today, has Hill. Really shown his skill in the wet and on the intermediate tyres, keeping it nice, smooth, consistent around here during the very, very wet conditions. And those conditions, and we saw it when we went through the telemetry information, they were full wet conditions. You know, they're not ideal for intermediate. So to keep it on track all the way through there, and as consistently as Hill did, it's just another masterclass here for Cooke Driver Development's team.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the team at Cooke are putting on some fantastic strategy calls, whether it's Division 1 for Andrew Scott getting all 6 victories in a row, potentially going to look for 7 victories for the final round at Watkins Glen, and also for Mick Hill, who's now got to potentially have 3 victories under his name in Division 2 in the Trak Racer TCR Cup. You know, some great strategy calls there. They're all playing it off by each other there, so they're all working together, is both Andrew Scott and Mick Hill. They're working together to get the car balanced and get in the right strategy calls there. And so far, it's a fantastic sight to see that Cooke driver and Mick Hill's really paying off. The rewards are paying off for the man in car number 3. And also, you have to give full credits as well to Matt Kuchar. You could definitely say in the wet conditions, he was really, really closing up on Mick Hill in first place. He's actually reduced the gap from what I can see from what it was before to what it is now. He's really reduced the gap there. So hats off to Matt Kuchar as well, and putting on some sort of pressure and some sort of boost of morale in that Diffusion Race Engineering Audi TT.
Yeah, good on him for getting... Whoa, that was a moment in Eau Rouge for Sean Parker, the 83 car. Crikey. That is foot in mouth kind of situation, and he picks up a penalty for his troubles, going well beyond the white line there and trying to keep the throttle in, which, you know, I'm sure, Nick, you and me both have been in that situation before. The only way to avoid a spin in that situation is often just to keep the throttle in and just power over the hill at Eau Rouge, and he's gone over the bollards there, so he's given himself a self-imposed penalty as well. So not the best start to lap 27 for Sean Parker. He was actually at one point of this race up in P2, but I think the wet conditions have not played his way, and he's now down and finds himself down in 5th position with a penalty, and Charles Nathaniel ahead, who's actually closed up the gap significantly to Ben Churchill in front. So Charles Nathaniel is on a charge looking to get ahead of Ben Churchill, but Ben Churchill at the moment a standout for me personally, because he was right at the back of the grid. He had a real shocker in the initial parts of the wet conditions, and now I don't know whether it was during the wet conditions or the timing of getting back onto the soft tires. He's absolutely nailed it in the latter part of this race.
Oh, he's done a fantastic job here. So Ben Churchill and Road Slick Racing, after what was a very tricky start there, he had some good pace. Unfortunately, a bad strategy call there kept him on those soft tires for one lap too long. I would have loved to have seen where he would have ended up in all of this had he played his cards right, because he definitely would have been challenging for P2 against Matt Kuchar. But even so, with this pace that he's got, the raw pace that Ben Churchill has, he would have actually been challenging Mick Hill for a potential victory. But
yeah.
but we can definitely say. But I mean, say what you can say, predict what you can predict, but unfortunately things don't come true. And you know, unfortunately for Churchill's case, a mistake running too long on the soft tires, and unfortunately ruined his chances of getting himself onto the victory lane. But he's holding on very nicely to P3, and it's a great recovery drive there. As we can see now, Mitch Collin has come through the pack. He was inside the top 10 only a couple of laps ago. He's up into 7th place now. So on some sort of recovery drive here for Mitch Collin, he's going to try and find as many points as he can there. But the gap between himself and Tony Griffin is absolutely massive. So 7th place is all he can hope for if he stays in this position with only 7 laps to go. It's all about just trying to rack in some sort of points, because I can see from what I can see from the live standings, as we can see from our MotorMotion E-Series, the positions are changing in the championship.
Yeah, correct, big time. And of course, double points here available for the endurance round. This is the second of only 2 endurance rounds in the 7-round series. This is round 6, of course, of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. And yeah, this has got huge implications for the end of the season. Of course, you've only got one more race to go, and it's back to regular points from next round. So,
yep,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge swing. We mentioned earlier that 90 points are available for first position. Second position will take home 80. Third position will take home 70. So if I do a little bit of math here, which I probably won't get completely correct, but I think there could be 50 points easily between where Colin is now and where Hill is in terms of finishing points for the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to find out officially once the race is over whether Mick Hill can come through and take victory for the 3rd time in this Trak Racer TCR Cup, sponsored by Trak Racer. And he's doing a fantastic job getting himself up towards the front in P1. But again, it's going to come down to that last race. As we know, Division 2 racing can be spicy. You know, you throw these cars in, you throw in a championship battle that can be won by anyone in the top 3. And you've got Watkins Glen, which is known to be a very harsh circuit for tyre wear, just like as it was in Spain and Barcelona. You know, you throw those conditions, holy hell, we're going to be having some great racing for the final round.
It's going to be fantastic. I mean, Watkins Glen is one of my personal favorite tracks. Such fun down there with the high-speed corners. But you're right, like, they're going to really suffer here. We saw that, I think it was round 1 when we went to Daytona. I mean, I'll double-check which round that was. Exactly, I think it was, in fact, yeah, round 1 with Daytona. And we made a point, I think, for the entire race in both divisions about how much the tires were suffering, especially on those high-speed corners. It absolutely destroys these front-wheel drive cars' tires, especially at the front, of course, as we noticed the rear tires seem to last forever. But at Watkins Glen, you are going to be at the mercy of the burning sun down there in the United States of America. And yeah, it's going to be a great, I mean, it's a great track though. So we'll see them flying into the corners and probably having no grip to get out of the corners. But yeah, it's going to be really great. I mean, I think the battle now is going to, based on the standings at the moment, it's going to be between P2 and P3 in the championship in terms of Watkins Glen. If Hill continues the way he is and manages to get this car back to the line in another 5 laps only remaining, because we are 1 hour and 20 minutes into this race now, he's going to be out to a fantastic lead in this championship.
Yeah, it is absolutely intense here, and the Trak Racer TCR Cup, and we are very excited for that final round. I'm very much looking forward to it, and you know, the racing is so close in Division 2, and you get some great strategies, and as well you get some awesome battles between everyone up and down the field there. So where you see some drivers that you may not see them, you know, especially with I think this is a very good redemption round here for Matt Kuchar. Up into P2, he's been hanging well behind Mitch Collin throughout this whole championship race season, and he's up into P2. He's got so many points ahead of Mitch Collin, and this is a very, very strong race for the Diffusion Race Engineering driver in car 426. So very solid drive here for Matt Kuchar, keeping this car P2, keeping it steady, keeping it on the track, keeping in some steady conditions. He's not really challenging Mick Hill for the win there, so he's got himself a good buffer over Ben Churchill in 3rd place. So he's just going to run to his numbers. He's going to run to the end of the race, 5 laps to go, and he's going to be holding on for a very solid P2. And you know, he can definitely say he's finished ahead of Mitch Collin this season.
Yes, you're right. And I'm just looking at the Division 2 standings pre this round. Currently, based on Colin's position down in 7th, there is going to be a 10-point gap for Kuchar to oh no, sorry, it's going to be, oh actually, it's really hard to tell actually. I'm trying to figure out if Kuchar's going to be ahead in the Drivers' Championship if he finishes in P2, if Colin finishes in P7. I think he might be about 7 points behind, so still in P3. But Colin will guaranteed be dropping down to P2. There's only 27 points between him and Hill. But Kuchar in the last round, if he finishes even, I think he'll have to finish 2 positions ahead of Colin in the final round to take P2 in the Drivers' Championship. How about that for a final race in the top 3 positions? The P2 and P3 will almost certainly be able to switch around. It's going to be great.
My goodness, we're in for a spicy championship battle here for P2 and for the championship win here. So if you are liking what you're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for the MotorMotion E-Series YouTube channel, where you're going to find all the action for next Tuesday's currently final round of the Player 1 GT3 Championship, being broadcasted to you live for Lobby A and Lobby B at the spectacular Mount Panorama Bathurst for the finale of the Player 1 GT3 Championship. And then in 2 weeks' time, we'll see these cars yet again going around Watkins Glen for the final round. The last time around, we'll see the Audi TTs around here for the TCR Cup at Watkins Glen. So if you are interested in, if you are very keen to get yourselves into racing and you are very keen to see all the action, hit that subscribe button and join us here at MotorMotion E-Series. We're about 4 laps to go here. We've got some great drivers. There's not too many battle packs now. It's gone very quiet here, George. So there's a little bit of time just to see what drivers are going to do now and where they're positioning themselves. And can anyone challenge each other? I can see the only closest one I can see here is the battle between CP and Trackstars Racing for the battle for 8th place. And you can even throw Hasseldean right there. He's not far behind in 10th overall.
Yep, so they're fighting for about a difference of 20 points here between 8th and 10th overall. And Yeah, you're right. There's been a little bit of a break, which is actually nice because I've been able to do my math, Nick, which is absolutely fantastic. I do take my time to make sure I get things as close to accurate as possible. You know, the old 80-20 rule here. Not usually the way that mathematicians go, but I'm certainly no mathematician. Looking ahead here, with Ben Churchill currently in 3rd position, finishing this race 4 positions ahead of Colin, that's going to put Colin within range of being pushed down to 4th position. So not only will Colin now have Cooke on his tail, only 7 points or so between him at the end of this round, he's also going to have Churchill right there, because Churchill is only 4 points behind Cooke in the standings. So we're going to have a 3-way battle for P2, and not only that, with one of them who's not going to get to the top 3 of the championship. Oh, this is going to get even better. It's, I mean, well, you know, this is the kind of stuff that you absolutely hope for, and Division 2 is absolutely delivering right now in terms of the Driver Championship. I'm going to be all over the math of this next week, in a couple of weeks, out at Watkins Glen, because you know it's going to come down to a fine-tooth calculator.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get your Casio calculator up and running and it works perfectly, then hey, crunch all the numbers and crunch them all as we get the race that race underway. But I think the biggest winner out of all of this, out of all these championship championship implications, Mick Hill. You know, he's come from absolutely out of nowhere. He's absolutely dominated this race. He's dominated where he needed to, especially in a double points round. He's P1. He looks, by the sounds of it, he looks like he's going to be taking the win and potentially taking the lead of this championship here in Division 2. And my goodness, we've got some great battles here for the Division 2, for the sheep stakes of P2 and potentially the championship victory. But as well, you know, we've got all the other small bragging right championships as well. We're going to think about the teams championship as well. There we can have potentially me, Cougar, wrapping up the title tonight in the Trak Racer TCR Cup, as well as seeing where the likes of Track Stars Racing, Road Stick Racing, Diffusion Race Engineering, Robo Sport Racing, you know, the battle for P2 and the Teams Championship, that's not over at all.
Not at all, no, and that's heating up very much so. And yes, with the current finish at the moment, with Andrew Scott winning Div 1, and with the provisional P1, I'm going to say provisional, for Mick Hill at the moment, that's going to get them 180 points today. And you're right, that will seal the deal for the championship overall, unless they somehow do something, you know, completely crazy and the stewards decide that they're going to remove 200 points, which is unlikely, I think. Probably slightly unlikely in terms of the stewarding rules. I haven't seen any provisions in there for that kind of a penalty. So no matter what they do, I'm sure they can find something if they really tried hard. But you're right, it's going to heat up between P2 and the team's title, all the way down to P8. And did I just hear some screeching tyres ahead? I think I did. Not quite sure who that was. That was actually Kingsley Hoey, yeah, going a bit sideways into Puon there. But no, all eyes are on the number 3 car at the moment. We're coming up to the penultimate lap of this race. He's on lap 32. After he goes through Stavelot and through Blanchimont and over the pit straight, it will be on the white flagged lap, the penultimate lap of this race, and then we'll be on the final lap of this race. Sorry, that'll be the white flag lap, of course. But yeah, great job by Hill. Chop's still holding on to fastest lap at the moment, and I get the feeling that no one's going to be challenging that at this stage, Nick.
No, especially when you had a track that was very bone dry. The track is so green at the moment as well. It is very, very green. All the rubber that's been laid down has been totally washed off. So the drivers trying to find any sort of grip around here is going to be technically impossible. You're not seeing drivers going for really fast lap times. We did see that Mick Hill was in the 2:28s, where you can see Matt Cooke is hanging around the 2:31s. We have Ben Churchill is in the 2:31s as well, so he's not able to put some pace in, but before he's in the 2:29s. And then we have Charles Nathaniel, who looked to put on some great calls there on his intermediate tyres. He was really charging through the field there as the track was starting to dry out, and he really had the pace on him throughout the rest of the competitors who were on the wet tyres. So he came through very nicely, and he's finishing P4. If he finishes P4 at the end of this will be a very, very good result for him. for the ICO Esports team. Then we have Sean Parker, who does have the fastest lap there, sitting 2:29 there. So again, the track is very green. The drivers are not really setting those fastest lap times. The rubber's not really being laid down. And with only 2 laps to go, you're not going to find any sort of pace whatsoever. I think all these drivers are just settling in where they are now, and they just want to bring these cars home because, my goodness, the amount of driving and the amount of work they've done tonight is absolutely huge.
Correct. It's you know, this is a tricky track mentally. You've got to be very careful of your mental bandwidth, and then especially when there's rain, you're going to have the engineers, you know, all up in your headset, telling you this and that, all this information, plus managing the tires, plus managing these incredible cars. You've got to be very careful with how you manage your mental bandwidth. And yeah, after you've come out of a, you know, 2 stops on, or 1 or 2 stops on the wet tires or the intermediate tires, and you get into dry tires, you're not really looking to be as fast as you were before. There's some, you know, whether your confidence has been knocked a little bit from incidents, or whether you're looking at your position going, well, that's pretty lucky I'm there. Let's just keep this position. Let's hold on to what we've got now and consolidate the position we've ended up in. But yeah, I think you're right. Hats off to Charles Nathaniel. It was a fantastic charge to the field on the intermediate tires late in the wet stint. Again, you know, what could have been for Ben Churchill and Charles Nathaniel, in fact, both of them getting caught out with the rain that came down suddenly, having to do a full lap of Spa on the soft tires, and that was just, I mean, you know, if we didn't know it was diabolical. It was comedic in some ways, you know, if it wasn't such a disaster. So,
yeah.
But hats off to them.
Because we had the camera crew all down on the bus stop. Every single car was going skating down on the final corner. They couldn't pull it up. Mitch Cullen couldn't pull it up. Sean Parker couldn't pull it up. We had Charles Nathaniel pull it up. He took the brief lead for a second, but caused an absolute blockage of the pit lane and really just blocked everyone going through. And then we had Ben Churchill, who suffered the worst out of all of it, dropped down to P11 at the end of the pit window cycle, and is sitting up in P3. So very, very solid drive. So I have a feeling that our driver for the day picks are going to be very mix and match here tonight, and we've got some worthy contenders for driver of the day. But we are on for the final lap here for the Trak Racer TCR Cup here for round 6 at Circuit Spa front shop for round 6. And for the last time, we have Mick Hill leading the way in car 3 for the Cooke driver development team. No challenges whatsoever. He's got a huge buffer over Matt Kuchar in second, and he's got no one in front of him whatsoever. If he wants to look further ahead, everyone's coming through Buon and going through Fagnay for the second last time. But for Mick Hill, been a clean race, led from the start, got the move done on Mitch Cullen through this corner, actually through Rivage. He got the move done on Mitch Cullen, and it hasn't looked back at all.
Correct, and look at the timing sheets for Hill. 28th, all the way through the last, I think that's 8 laps. It'll probably be a 28 for this final lap as well. So super consistent drive here. He's put on even more distance. There was only one Kimmel straight of distance between him and Kuchar. Now there's about 2. So it just goes to show how impressively done it has been today by Hill. Certainly a worthy contender for driver of the day, but I agree, it's going to be a really difficult decision. For those of you who are in the grandstands in the chat, do let us know who your driver of the day is for today. I think we're going to see a very large mix of opinions, but for the last time through Stavelot and down towards the back straight that is Blanchimont, it is Hill. He's going to pick up another victory here in round 6. In the TCR Trak Racer Cup, brought to you by the MotorMotion E-Series, and what a drive it's been through the wet, through the dry, through the chaos, starting in 4th position in P4. Terrible qualifying for Hill, but he's pulled off an absolute masterclass. In the first corner, went from P4 to P2 on the race start, and then it was all uphill from then for him as he does come through the bus stop for the last time, and across the line will go Mick Hill for the Cooke drive development. He takes the checkered flag. What a race it has been for Hill. Great job there, and that will be it for this race. In terms of Hill, he's going to bring that car back to the pits, and yeah, crikey, it's just been brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the results are going to be more or less official. We can see that Mitch Collins actually dropped down a position. He's down to P8. So
Oh,
with that position change, Mick Hill has now officially taken the lead of the championship here at the end of as we're about to approach the end of round 6 of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. We have Matt Kuchar, a great drive in P2, and then we have Ben Churchill rounding up the podium after a stellar
oh,
drive
this is
there
getting
up and
close
down the
though.
field, but fit the podium positions there. We have Charles Nathaniel defending from Sean Parker on the last lap here. It's going to go this big clutch. It's going to be side by side, close quarters between them, but Charles Nathaniel holds on to P4. Sean Parker holds on to P5. Looks like he just ran out of fuel on that last bit of stretch there. Tony Griffin rounds up into 6th place. And then we have this huge battle pack here. We have Stephen Harrison just defending all his life here on Mitch Collin. Mitch Collin did drop a position down to P8. He's going to try and fight back as much as he can because he needs all these back for the last round of this championship. But he's losing ground. He's losing time to Stephen Harrison. So CP Motorsports, a very strong race here for the CP Motorsports driver. Car 41 looks to be taking P7 away from Mitch Collin. He will take that P7 as he comes around the bus stop for the final time. Holds on to P7. Mitch Collin, P8.
That hurts. That hurts for Colin. That is an extra 10 points he's lost there. Oh dear, oh dear. That is a disaster for him in this championship. But Hasseldine will take 9th. Madrick rounds out our top 10. Karma Foster. And finally, we do have Kingsley as well. So, wow. Where do we even begin, Nick? There's a lot to digest in a 90-minute race. I feel like we've just watched 2.
Absolutely. So much action, so much drama, so much carnage, and so much controversy as well throughout the whole entire field there. I don't think I saw one car whatsoever go through any sort of carnage at least once throughout the field. I think I'll have to say even Mick Hill went through a bit of carnage on that first lap, but then after that it was just straight driving and just pulling away from everybody else. And he did a fantastic job keeping that lead there. Didn't look back at the end of lap 1. Let the entire race from the end of lap 1 to the end of lap 34. That's a clinical drive there for Mick Hill and for me, Cooke Drive Development. And what a race there was, up and down the order.
Yep, absolutely. We are losing you a little bit there, Nick, in terms of you dropping out a little bit on our comm box. So we're going to get that microphone fixed as soon as possible. At the moment, we are currently just waiting for our results to be compiled. And that is in terms of not only the race results, but also in the current championship standings, which are getting so close now. The stewards and all of those guys down in the broadcasting area, the admins, are compiling those results for us right now. And once we're ready, I think we'll go down there. But for now, I think, Nick, if you are back, we are going to be talking Driver of the Day. I've seen a couple of people in the grandstand. They've already given Churchill Driver of the Day. A couple of votes for him now. And then we've got another vote for... it looks like we've got another vote for Hill as well. So it's between Hill and Churchill in terms of the grandstand. And Nick, are you back in the commentary box now? Is your mic working again?
Yep, hopefully, fingers crossed, it all works on my end now.
There we go.
Some very worthy honourable mentions there for both Hill and Churchill. Absolutely, they both deserve Driver of the Day, but I'm actually going to go for a different side. I'm going to go for Matt Kuchar. He's a bit of an underdog there between those drivers. So you could definitely say Churchill for his roller coaster ride of a series of events here at Spa-Francorchamps, finishing in P3. Mick Hill for that dominant race that he had. But Matt Kuchar, very, very quiet assassin, and the first half of the race was absolutely nowhere. You couldn't even pick him out inside the top 8 as a driver that was a standout in that first stint in that soft running phase. But as soon as he throws on the wet tires, as soon as you throw in wet conditions, he just came through in like an absolute masterclass, an absolute strategy call there and a half, and he came through out of nowhere, solidifying P2. Once he got P2, he just didn't look back. He did not look back whatsoever, and that P2 finish that he got, even holding on in the dry conditions as the track was starting to get pretty dry, he got himself into that P2, and that's definitely a Driver of the Day for me.
Too right. No, I think that's a good call, and we've got to remember that Cooke has put himself up into a great position here to battle for P2 in the Drivers' Championship with such a good result there, as has Bern Churchill. So I do agree with your driver of the day going to Cooke. I think mine will go to Churchill, just given the amount of fight back that he had to perform throughout that entire race due to maybe a bit of a dodgy call overall, getting into the pit lane, getting onto the softs a bit late, and then fighting all his way back all the way to third place was very impressive to me. But I think honourable mentions go to Churchill, to Hill, to Charles Nathaniel, as well as Sean Parker, who did hold on to P2 for a long time, but unfortunately slipped back into 5th position. But unfortunately, the person who's missed out most of all today has been Colin. That's an absolute disaster. I don't want to rub it in, of course, to Colin, because we know how good a driver he's been. He's been fantastic during the entire season, and it's not over for him yet. He hasn't, well, we're going to see the results soon. I believe they've just been compiled. We're just getting sent the information up here, so we'll check out the championship standings in just one moment. But the race results here, as you can see on screen, first place to Mick Hill for Me Cougar Driver Development. 90 points he'll take home for the team and himself. Then it's Matt Cooke for Diffusion Range Engineering, 80 points will take home. Then Ben Churchill, 70 points. Charles Nathaniel will take home 60 points for ISA Esports, a great result for him and the team. Then Sean Parker for RoboSport Racing will take home 50 points. And then it is Tony Griffin for Juiced Motorsports taking home 40 points. And then we've got Stephen Harrison for CP Motorsports. This is where the team's title starts to come in a little bit here, because CP Motorsports, obviously, they've been fighting with Trackstars to steal out the P2 of the team's title. 36 points he'll take home. Then we've got Colin. That's going to be a disaster on 34 points. Hasseldine in 9th position, then Ricky Rick, 24 points for him. Karma Foster in 11th place, and then last but not least, Kingsley Hoey with a DNF, unfortunately, for Troy Britnell, who had car issues early on the race. Just as the rain came down, we suspect he's gone into the barrier somewhere and really destroyed the car and the engine. And then, of course, 2 DNS, which is Hamilton and Karras today. So, Nick, over to you now. The championship results have been compiled. Let's see where things are at.
Well, hopefully my maths is correct and your maths is correct, and there we are. We have our numbers have worked wonders here, George.
Amazing.
So we've done very well here. So it is official. This is the first time that Mick Hill has actually now taken the lead off this championship and taken the lead away from Mitchell Collins. So the Me Cougar Drive Development taking the lead in not just in Division 1, but now they actually have Division 2 well set in stone there. 31 points ahead of Mitch Collins. So that's a huge buffer for Mitch Collins to catch up for the final round here. So anything can happen in the final round at Watkins Glen, but 31 points is a huge buffer to get any sort of redemption and get himself back up towards the point. And so it's all to do for Mitch Collins and even for Matt Cooke with a great performance there. He's now 11 points behind his rival in Mitch Collins in 3rd place. And then Ben Churchill coming through the pecking order. We're really getting in some very good racing there in that round at Spa and getting himself a P3 overall, but 236 points, a little bit behind Matt Cooke, but still holding on to a P4 overall. That's a great drive. That's a great performance and great championship performance there by Ben Churchill. And then Ricky Rick, Sean Parker equal on points for the battle for 5th place. And then Charles Nathaniel, after a great result last time out at Spa, in 7th place. Tony Griffin and 8th, Stephen Harrison for CP Motorsports in 9th place. Mark Hasseldine for Extreme Motorsports in 10th place, the last of the drivers in the triple figures. And then we have Graham Hamilton, unfortunately, who as well, as we said earlier, did not attend the race, is in 8th, in 11th place, equal on points with Karma Foster for Net Racing. Kingsley Hoey in 13th place on 76. Troy Britnell with a DNF on 50 points, and Mark Karras on 15th place on 21 points after only attending one race so far in this championship. But man, what a swing in the championship there that has been. Mitch Collins, and finally he's actually been dethroned from the lead of this championship. He's been holding that up since round 1, but at the end of round 6 he's lost it, and he's lost it in a big way, you could say.
Yeah, exactly. It's really unfortunate for Colin. It's just a huge swing in the standings. There are, of course, 45 points on offer for a win in the final round, but it'll all depend on where Hill finishes in that race as to whether Colin can claw back. If Hill has some sort of DNF, then Colin could be right there to take back the lead. But, you know, we've seen Hill's consistency. Chances of him having a DNF are reasonably low, so it might be all to play for P2 and P3 and P4 now. Ben Churchill brings himself, only 14 points in it to get to a P3 position. So, yeah, this top 4 battle is going to be absolutely brilliant. And then also Ricky Rick and Sean Parker fighting out for 5th spot there. Brilliant stuff overall. I mean, it's just been absolutely fantastic. We do have, I'm hearing in the radio now, that we do have the team's title standings being calculated. So we will jump over there in just a second. But just keeping an eye on this Drivers' Championship here in Div2. It is heating up. You do not want to miss next round. It is the final round. Of course, round 7 at Watkins Glen coming up in 2 weeks from today, so make sure you come back and stay tuned for that. Let's jump over to the team's title now, see where things are hanging out in terms of the team's title, and then that will be our broadcast for this evening. So, team's title, and yeah, no surprise there at top of the grid, Me Cooke Development, 652 points, Nick.
Yep, and that's wrapped up the team's title for Me Cooke Driver Development. So big congratulations to the team, led by Andrew Scott and Mick Hill, all located in New South Wales. So 652 points. That is a huge buffer over the likes of Trackstars Racing, who's increased the lead over not just CP Motorsports. Actually, I'm actually looking at it now. Look at it in the flesh there. CP Motorsports down to 5th place after being right behind Trackstars Racing. Only 3 points separated those teams coming into this round, but the double points on offer, Lansdale's podium, and unfortunately Ricky Rick's unfortunate race there has really propelled Trackstars up into P2, and especially now Road Sick Racing up the pecking order as well, and Diffusion with Matt Kutcher's P2. And Aiden Sanson's top 8 in Division 1 has really blossomed that, has really propelled that team up towards the top 4. CPM Motorsports suffering the worst out of it this round.
Correct, yeah, really unfortunate for them. They've dropped so far off the top of this race here. They were looking in for a P3, but that's what these double points rounds can do. And, you know, if you can make it count in these rounds, we can get a good result out there. It can absolutely swing things your way, and that's what's happened today, despite maybe not the best result for Ricky Rick. But, you know, he's helped put Trackstars up there on 401 points. That is
absolutely
still ahead of Road Sick Racing, but Ben Churchill has brought Road Sick Racing right back into this.
Yeah, and not just Ben Churchill, Matt Kutcher for Diffusion Race Engineering. That result there has helped Diffusion Race Engineering. So the battle for P2 is still on there between Trackstars, Road Sick, Diffusion, and even throw in CP Motorsports as well. Mad Turtle Racing, if they can get all their drivers in that second division, in that Division 2 lobby, they can throw Graham Hamilton into the mix there as well, and they can throw some sort of curveball in this team's championship. But the standout in all of that, Me Cooke Driver Development, they've got 2 out of 3 titles at the end of the night here, George, and that just shows just pure class and pure domination for the team that is debuting in the Trak Racer TCR Cup. And what a way to mark your debut here at MotorMotion.
Correct. Yeah, it is a statement, that's for sure, to all the existing teams that have been around for a long time, to really say, hey, we're here, we mean business, and it's all up to you guys to catch up. It's almost like doing a Shane Van Gisbergen at NASCAR, isn't it?
Absolutely right. You know, you come in, you dominate, and then you just take a title, you take a trophy home, and that's what Me Cooke Driver Development have done. But the battle for P2, that's going to be a spicy one between Trackstars, Road Sick Racing, Diffusion Race Engineering, CP Motorsports, and even throw in Mad Turtle Racing. But as we look down as well, P7, unfortunately, for Mitch Cullen and Mark Pacheco. Mark Pacheco having a good round last time out, but unfortunately, just as he was a privateer, he did struggle a little bit just to get those points for the team. So they're sitting P7, and then Robo Sport Racing 8th place, with Ward dropping down the rear of the field there in Division 1, and Sean Parker just trying to claw some points back. And then Juiced Motorsports, we saw Matthew Johnson really at the last place in Division 1 as well, so he really struggled in that race in the mixed conditions at Spa. And then Ice3 Esports with those big points, got some points back against their names in 10th place. Strike Race Tech, unfortunately with Britnell's DNF, really hampered their progress towards the top, and between the top 8 in the team's championship. And then we have Ned Racing in 12th, and then Extreme Motorsports for 13th place. So there's a lot of battles up and down the team's title, But I think the one that we will be keeping our eyes on. We know that 2 titles have been sealed tonight here, but one title that we are going to keep an eye on is the team's battle for P2 and the battle for the championship in Division 2. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait for Watkins Glen in 2 weeks' time. I'm so looking forward to it. And it's been some great racing here tonight in the Trak Racer TCR Cup for round 6 in Division 2. And we do thank our drivers so much for braving out these conditions as well here. My goodness, that changeable condition from dry to wet to dry, I couldn't believe how much that rain was.
Oh yeah, they've got hearts made out of something I don't even know. Brains made out of something I don't even know. It's been impressive. Very impressive to see them navigate these conditions. I certainly wouldn't have wanted to be out there. We said this about Atlanta, and it was in the dry. But out here at Spa, I mean, just impressive all around the grid from all the drivers and all the teams. They've done the prep. They knew what was coming their way. They got onto, in some cases, the right tire at the right time. In some cases, they had to get a little bit of extra bravery, a little bit of extra sisu, as the Finns like to say, to navigate the very, very treacherous conditions out there. And Spa is tough in the best of conditions, let alone with an FF car in the Audi TT Cup 2016 car. It's very, very tricky conditions. So hats off to all the teams and drivers. A huge thanks, of course, to all of them for putting on such a great race. We are nothing here in the commentary box without great action happening down on track. And to our sponsor, Trak Racer, again, big thank you to them for sponsoring our TCR Cup here at the MotorMotion E-Series. That will conclude round 6 and our coverage of this amazing race here at Spa today. Remember to join us in 2 weeks for the Watkins Glen round 7. It's going to be an amazing end to the season, but also don't forget, next Tuesday is going to be the final round. Come and join us at the amazing, the legendary, the hot, the hilly Bathurst. We're going around for a fantastic final for our Player One Sim Gear GT3 Championship here at the MotorMotion E-Series. Make sure you tune in live for both the Group A lobby, which Nick here will be commentating on, as well as Ryan Palmer, and then join in as well on Group B lobby for a bit of fun. It's the fire and the flames that are going to be going around in the GT3 Championship cars. We're looking for a fantastic end to that season as well. But Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure being in the commentary box with you. Thank you, everyone in chat. It's been absolutely fantastic. I'll throw it over to you for the final word, but thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Remember to like and subscribe on the MotorMotion E-Series channel if you've been enjoying the broadcast. We will see you back here for TCR Cup Round 7 in 2 weeks.
And thank you so much for George Cooke for bringing us the stream and the broadcast here on MotorMotion E-Series. If you haven't already, go follow him on his Twitch channel, Crazy Good Kung Fu, where you get to see all of his racing and post commentary and all the races he competes in. So we do want to give our sincere thanks to the man that's bringing the stream for us tonight, as well as the admin for putting in all of their hard work, for bringing the results, getting us all the paperwork that we need to bring you tonight here at the conclusion of round 6 of the Trak Racer TCR Cup. It's been an absolute privilege to be joined here by George Cooke and actually to be here in this beautiful circuit here at Circuit Spa Francorchamps. But in 2 weeks' time, we go to an even better circuit in Watkins Glen. What an amazing track that's going to be, and what an amazing finale we're going to have for these Audi TT one make Group 4 entries. But here for us, Tune in next Tuesday night, where we broadcast you live for the Player One GT3 Championship, as mentioned by George Cooke. Round Lobby 1 presented by myself and Ryan Palmer, while Division 2, or Lobby 2 rather, will be brought to you by George.
Oh, and as always, the communications lines have been cut once again by the admittedly very, very heavy weather. We might get Nick back in just a second. There we go. There's Nick. There we go.
We're gonna have to fix something up. I think once we get out of Spa, I think it'll be all fixed up, because this wet conditions has really had its effect on it whatsoever. But to conclude, thank you so much for tuning in. Join us on Facebook. Join us on all the socials. Like everything that you see that is MotorMotion E-Series. Join us and join the movement here at MotorMotion, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday night for the finale of Player One GT3 Championship.